I'm doing fine. It's nice and early in the morning here. It's a little cool. It's a nice August day.
It is. And yeah, so talking about I think you had recently said something about kind of off-world intelligence, non-human intelligence. And I've always, as someone with a biology degree, I always brag about this. I got into medical school. I got into pharmacy school. I like to think I have somewhat of a brain between my ears. And as somebody who's just really obsessed with the Cold War, I've always looked at off-world intelligence just very pragmatically. Like forget the whole, we can't tell the people because they'll go crazy. Forget all of that. Just in the last 100 years, let's choose Vietnam. Let's choose Mujahideen. Okay, so what do we have? They're not third world countries, they're second world countries. All right. They're fighting another second world country, South North Vietnam. All right. They know that there are first world countries giving them things, and they're aware of who they are. They don't know all their intentions. They probably can assume it's not benevolence, that they're pawns, but they go, we're getting some money, we're getting some cool stuff, we're getting some private jets. Mujahideen, hey, we're getting cash, we're getting cell phones, we're getting Stinger missiles. Yeah, all right. Like I know I'm fighting, but I'm getting this cool shit from these entities. So just that right there, a rice farmer in Vietnam, you know, being read into McNamara's plan to drop ammonia sensors on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Just think that alone, you go, that's kind of crazy. Why in the world, no pun intended, would that not then apply one level further? Why would that not apply? And that's kind of what I wanted to hear your thoughts on, because to me, that's always the most basic explanation.
So it does apply, right? And but the implications of it are very far-ranging, and most people don't examine out. They don't go very far out in their thinking. And so did the Vietnamese, South or North? I think many of them did, but did the Vietnamese as a whole recognize that it was not second world country versus second world country, but in fact, they were just simply the proxy of one first world country attacking it and creating a situation for the benefit of other first worlders? Most likely did not recognize that, being wrapped up in the misery of the war and everything, right? Your vision is limited by what goes on around you locally, preventing you from thinking further on out. We have that issue here across the globe and with all humans. There are certainly humans that are aware of things, are aware of the non-human intelligences that are interacting with us, probably directing much of the activity here, but we can't say how much or quantify it in any way. All we can do is hold in our mind this space that says it's likely that they're fucking with us,
Yeah.
and just bear that in mind as we go along, right? But it doesn't mean, as you say, that we're going to stop our activity of fighting the other second world country in this particular activity, because it's life and death for us in the moment. We just have to be aware that it's not as we're being told. And here's the real wrinkle in all of this. Here is the hidden layer that even maybe some people in government, maybe some people in control do actually consider this, and it freaks them out. And I think I see signs of that freak out occurring. But here's the concept. Off-world intelligences are by their nature expressing consciousness. That consciousness is the universal currency. It is the currency of the universe. It is the basic substrate.
The self, the bit.
No, consciousness, the one, the monad, the only.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
like Bhagavad Gita, like the I am, the being.
No, it's even beyond that. Okay, so here's
Okay.
what. Okay, so that only goes so far. That's all of these visions, the Gita, Buddhism, all of these things where they do come to the conclusion the monad is all. Stop right there, and they don't really ever consider the other ramifications of it. Like even the physicist Federico, can't think of his name at the moment, that's doing his consciousness deal. Um, Even he is limited in his thinking about this, because doesn't understand that you must start at the monad, you must start at the absolute and work your way down. You can't start halfway down and begin reductionism there. You need to start your reductionism at the very top in order to get a holistic, realistic picture. So here's what they are facing, the controllers of this planet, both the non-human as well as the humans. But the humans particularly are blinded to this. So they know, so say that the deep state knows that it's being manipulated by off-world intelligences, and they're fine with it. They're this planet is South Vietnam as far as they're concerned, and that's the first world countries giving them orders. Their issue is that they don't understand the ramifications of anything that's going on at that level. They are assuming everything to be local, so to speak, a local occurrence. If they were to examine everything from the idea of the monad is, the absolute is the only thing in existence, and we are all an illusion. Every aspect of our lives is an illusion. Every aspect of our science is an illusion. There is no such thing as locality. There's no such thing as thoughts. Our consciousness does not arise from matter. It doesn't exist within our bodies, and in fact, it's the other way around. We are consciousness that houses a body, and within that consciousness, and this can be proven in so many ways, it's simple to do so. But in any event, so they don't understand this. They don't get this idea that their reductionist, their scientism is from a point much further down and then takes off from there. It doesn't start with the absolute. It is presumed, those people that are thinking about this, I would presume, because I think about this and I think this way, they should think that the non-human intelligence is aware of this aspect of thinking. And then you have to start analyzing what you're getting involved with. And it brings up mostly questions. Okay, so are all non-human intelligences at the same level? Well, if Earth was an example, no. Okay, they would have consciousness spread in various different layers throughout their social order through the biology that they're expressing. And many of the biologicals that they that are expressing would not have the big picture, so to speak, right? Those that do have the big picture will understand something, that there are within humanity individuals that have the big picture, okay, that have this understanding. And those individuals, and I'll say we, that have this understanding are not part of any officialdom. They're not part of any of the control structure. The control structure avoids them, doesn't talk to them, mainly because they can't comprehend what is being said at a base level or even in any of the nuance. But here's the thing. If indeed I'm correct and the non-human intelligence has various layers of conscious awareness and understanding, then it presents us with this particular view that the organization of the non-human intelligence that may be directing things is necessarily not acting in the most enlightened aspect of things, because they will be like us, where it will be the middle bulge of everything that's of the conscious awareness that is in fact directing it all. And so in my opinion, you'll find that the non-human intelligence has a huge task in front of them. And that is that they know, interacting with government, they're interacting with people that are organization mind and can't think their way out of the organization. And so there will be huge limits on what organizational mind is able to absorb and deal with, even though the non-human intelligence on the far side of it is acting outside of the organizational mind. It's acting it's expressing at a level of at least presumed awareness of consciousness to some degree and a level of nuance beyond ours. And so they are not going to seek to bond themselves to our structures and our government. They will seek us out for two major different reasons. One would be to seek out those individuals that, like themselves, have this awareness of the absolute, the consciousness, and all of that at that level, and have discovered that on their own. And so this will be very exciting to the non-human intelligences. They'll want to talk to the enlightened humans just to get that expression, that flavor of how did this come to you? How did you achieve this state? What was it that happened? Not that it's going to be new or shocking or anything, but it will be pleasing to them to understand this, to be able to um, harmonize, to empathize with what we've had to go through. And then they will also, unfortunately, those non-human intelligence will also have to interact with the non-aware, the governmental types that are rigid thinkers, where their minds are captured within the framework that has been instilled in them through their schooling and their experience. And they can't step beyond that framework. So the non-human intelligence has two motivations. One is to basically keep us all together and keep us from killing everything and killing ourselves. And then the other one is to explore the similarities. So, as someone who's on the consciousness exploration path, I'm quite fascinated with the idea of being able to talk to a non-human intelligence to see how much of my understanding is reflected in their understanding, to see, how smart or how stupid they really are. Just because they're advanced technically doesn't necessarily mean that they're enlightened. We only have to look to the Bible to understand this. If you go into the Old Testament, you find out that these beings that were quite technically astute. So the cherubs, for instance, that word actually translates to mechanical chariot. Okay, that was a description of their individual, like, jet ski versions of their spacecraft, the cherub. So it's not a being, all right? And so these people are,
Sorry, so there's
there we go.
there's the Bob Lazar one, and then next to it is when I was doing graphic design. Those are a bunch of cherubs playing guitars covered in tattoos. But I have that one right next to the alien one. Maybe that was a subconscious thing. Sorry, keep
There you
going.
go. So right? And so much of the Old Testament and the Torah, which is the source for it, are mistranslated quite deliberately to create this particular narrative, and it leaves out much of the mechanical stuff. So, for instance, Moses on the mountain is told to go and hide behind a rock in order that he doesn't get burned by the flames of Yahweh blasting off in his spaceship to get back to the Sky Council. And he does. He hides behind a rock and he looks out, and half of his face is burned. This is explicitly discussing mechanical jet kind of propulsion systems and so forth. And so we have these descriptions throughout the Old Testament, throughout the Torah, and they ultimately come back to beings that are not in any way acting as enlightened beings. These are cruel, malicious, emotion-filled, emotion-dominated beings that can't get out of their own heads and react badly to humans without the least provocation. In other words, it was entirely generated in and of themselves. You see many examples of this in the tales in the Bible of the angels being brutal, just coming across people that didn't instantly bow, and so they wipe out the whole family, leaving one to stand, right? One to tell the tale. And it's because these beings were controlled by their own emotions and are not enlightened, and they're expressing consciousness at that level. And so I would suspect not all aliens are like that. Not all non-human intelligences are like that. Many of them will have gone beyond that to where they can monitor what we call metacognition. And that's where you can monitor your thoughts as they are occurring and edit them as they are arising in your mind. This also means that you can monitor and edit your reaction to your own emotional states, with something we do not see in these gods of the Bible or the gods of the Gita. There's a difference there slightly, because Krishna in the Gita is such a being, is operating in metacognition and knows this, and tells Arjuna that this is the case, but there are times that you just have to go with the flow. You have to accept your situation. And then he goes on to this description of the karma involved in this great battle, where Arjuna has to fight against and kill his cousins. And he's enlightened enough, he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't see the reason for it. And so there are these reasons beyond our ability to think about them that rise up to such great levels that we have to seriously expand our vision out in order to grasp them. That yes, it's an evil thing to kill your cousins, but there are times that it is necessary, and that you will indeed suffer the karma of killing your cousins, but it is again necessary. And the karma that you would acquire by not doing so is, to, if we want to phrase it that way, even worse. And so we get to this understanding that non-human intelligences, many of them, especially at the level that has been presented to humanity so far, are as wrapped up in their karma as we are in ours. But I'm quite convinced that there are non-human intelligences on the other side of that that have gotten to the point where their metacognition allows them in real time to deflect their entry into karmic paths that thereafter become sort of like cemented in our reality. If you go and you kill your cousin, then the karmic repercussions begin from there and can't be undone, because you will set up emotional conditions in the cousins of the cousin you killed that will then come back to you later. And this is the nature of karma expressing within our reality. Bearing in mind that we're all we are within consciousness. So consciousness is not in our body. And we can prove this. There's no point in going into it. But the nature of ourselves is that we are three parts. We have mentition, we have consciousness, and then we have our emotional lives, so to speak. Okay, so, and all of these are within the apparent body, but none of them arise from the body. The body is, in fact, within consciousness. The body is indeed an illusion. And so if you dig deep enough in there, you'll probably come to the same conclusion that the non-human intelligences come to, which is that there is the absolute, everything, the monad, and then there is meaning. And there is nothing else within this universe. And we are living our lives to discover who we are. When we discover who we are, the act of doing that is where meaning comes into your life, and you express that meaning. You feel the meaning. Okay, so you're actually having an emotional response in your emotional body to this level of understanding, and you're coming into this concept of meaning. And that gives you your sense of who you are over time. And this is really your only purpose. So your purpose in life is to go through and deal with all of your karma and all of the petty little shit that is involved in this reality. But your purpose in your life is to discover who you are, which you do so through the meaning that is presented to your life by all the circumstances that have arisen to get us to this point. And most people feel the meaning, they respond to the meaning, but they don't think about the meaning. They don't examine their own lives in relation to the meaning. I'm of the opinion that the non-human intelligences that are running things actually do have some elements within their social order, and we'll call it a social order, but within their species, that do think about meaning at that level, because meaning is the way that the monad, which is powering all of us, discovers itself. So it is discovering itself through all of us discovering ourselves. And it has set up this situation in which we are independent, and we go from life to life to life, retaining that independence against the monad itself. And as you go through these lives, you come more and more, in my opinion, to being able to see the monad and see yourself within the monad and outside of it, interacting with it, just as you come to the understanding of your own thinking as being a process which you can edit in real time. And then this brings the question back: who or what is aware, and who or what is doing the editing? Well, this goes back to spirit. Okay, so we're mind, we're body, and we're spirit. And the spirit aspect is beyond the emotions. It is the you that is receiving the meaning. But if you examine that really, really, really deeply, you find out that there is no you there. That is just the interface to the monad. So you are just an app for the monad to discover who Thomas is in this minute. And that minute is perpetual through your entire life. And then your body ceases to exist, and you go and get another body and come back, because your job is unfinished. You don't know yourself completely until you know yourself through multiple lives, multiple bodies, and so on. every single time you get that feeling, and it is an emotional response of, oh my God, meaning. There's something meaningful here to me, that flush in your body, this makes sense or whatever, right? For some people, they're so trapped in the minutia of their lives. So like a gambler, guy goes to Vegas and he throws the dice and then he hits and he gets that huge flush of meaning that I knew it was going to happen. I could feel it in my hands when I was releasing the dice. I knew I was going to hit that number. I knew I was going to win. And that flush of meaning is amplified by the emotions within his body. He's supposed to understand that. He's supposed to have that experience at that deep fundamental level. You see this with people in war. I've talked to snipers, and they have this. This one particularly good sniper from Afghanistan said that every time he took a life, he knew in that instant before he pulled the trigger that he was going to succeed, and that particular moment of meaning overwhelmed him. And the meaning at first was understood by him in one way, and then over time it got to the point where he understood it completely, or more completely, and so was bonded to himself in that particular moment, in the action of taking a life. But it was in the way that he was feeling about doing that. It was like another Arjuna and Krishna thing. He was basically fighting his cousins in Afghanistan and knew that he had to do this, did it as well as he possibly could, was altered by the process of it, and then was even more altered by his recognition of being altered by the process. This particular individual cashiered out. He didn't re-enlist. He was very good. They put all kinds of pressure on him to re-enlist, and he just couldn't do it anymore because he'd come to that threshold, and he knew he didn't need that experience anymore, and he needed to have another experience of meaning thereafter in order for him to progress, that it would have been stagnation to stay there and continue to do that activity and not gain anything more from the meaning. And in my opinion, this is a path that we're all on, to be able to understand ourselves within that meaning, which of course reflects back to and gives the monad its understanding of itself by way of understanding ourselves. So the monad does not care. I don't buy into the idea of millions of multiple universes and diverse paths and timelines, or all of that horseshit that you get out of both the UFO and the woo-woo and the conspiracy worlds, right? Out of all three. I don't buy into it. It's a non sequitur. It just does not add up with our experience here. And that our experience here is basically focused on our interaction through our lives with this concept of meaning and how we defined it and what it does to us. I will postulate that no human could have meaning occur in their lives without being changed by it. And that this is a fundamental aspect of our reality and a fundamental aspect of our lives, is that whenever we get to that point of meaning, then we are changed. And that change is part of the point of our existence. And so the non-human intelligences, in my opinion, there will be some of maybe it's their deep thinkers, maybe they're as goofy as humanity in terms of how they're organized, right? And their organization is such, it doesn't pay attention to their deep thinkers, really. But there will be some within their social order that will sit there and puzzle and postulate and ponder all about the meaning within their lives. And then they'll extend that to the meaning in everybody else's lives. I think there are those non-human intelligences. I think they monitor us. I think we're on the cusp of this level of awareness that's spreading. And the complexity of the world in which we live, or the reality in which we share, is such that that every time I have meaning enter in my life and I cogitate on it, as with everybody else, that increases the potential for meaning in everyone's life. And it also elevates everybody's interaction with their own meaning in their lives. Most people don't get the chance to think about it. They're so subsumed with their individual lives. So the woman with the children will do something with one of her kids present them with a toy or an interaction at breakfast or something, and will be hit by a flash of meaning, that feeling within her that, oh my God, she actually was able to communicate this meaning to that child and got the reflection back from it. And then, because of the pressure of her life, she'll just have to put that thought aside and go on, get them off to school, et cetera, right? She doesn't have the freedom um, to examine. Now, I had the freedom because I chose to do meditation in two different forms. Zazen, which is the formalized sitting meditation, but I've also chosen to do what's called Vipassana, which is householder's meditation, which is basically a 24/7 kind of a thing, where you examine your life in detail as it's occurring. And that has
Mindfulness.
worked over these years, right? It's brought me a level of cogent, conscious awareness of myself within this reality. And it doesn't mean I don't fuck up, doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, but it does mean that I am aware of the mistakes as I'm making them. And I edit them frequently when I catch it early enough. And so I'm on this path. So I'm doing better than the me that was, 20 years younger, that sort of thing. And every day brings a little bit more increasing level of awareness. And that's really where we're headed. Our issue at the moment relative to the non-human intelligence is that the we have many issues, but some of the major ones include the idea that those humans that think themselves in control of the species don't want to release this information because it instantly makes them not in control. And they can't handle that idea. They can't handle the idea that they too are pawns. Some may be able to. Trump may know, and I think he would be cool with it, right? He would understand, note his role in what has to be done and do it very well. But a lot of people can't. They're just going to go crazy thinking that they're not in control.
Number one, I will join your cult if you ever start one.
Oh, I'm too honorary. I'm a pirate. I don't want the call.
And yeah, man, lot to go in there. So like I'll answer this in any way I can. My podcast is always just me talking off the top of my head. So I don't know. For a second I was like, I'm gonna try to plan out my thoughts, and I realized I've never once done that during a show, so I'm gonna stop now.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work. Doesn't work. Um
Now, do you know
the
why it doesn't work?
well, I mean, you can technically do it, but in terms of if you want a good conversation, you gotta take off
No,
all
no,
the
no, no.
guardrails.
You can technically do it. You can plan out your thoughts, but reality won't
Doesn't
allow
give
that to have any meaning. It'll
not
never get you into meaning.
You'll never get you any juice. It'll never get you the free
Right.
flow. When people ask me, they're like, how, when people also ask me, they're like, why do you record on like three different softwares? I'm like, because I can't redo shows. If I was, I don't know, some CIA cutout and I'm like, well, Cliff, today we're talking about your new shirt. And Cliff's like, hey, thanks for asking that. If the camera didn't work, we could go, let's redo that.
Right.
If this cut
Right.
down, I mean, we could kind
You
of maybe
can't get that
reattempt that. I
moment.
could be like, hey, what did I said something to you about my friend Drew Bob, and you'd be like, yeah, no, it's Bhagavad Gita. Like, you can't do it. So that's why when people ask me, what do I do to prep for the show? Uh, I always say the same thing. 8 hours to sleep, 15 minutes of exercise, 30 minutes of meditation and or prayer. Normally take a shower. Today I didn't because I'm a pig. And then you come in and you sit down and you give them your full attention, phone on airplane mode, have water and caffeine. And what you have is, it's a rectangular iMac. What it is it's a canvas and you let it run. And I have two parameters. You can't incite violence because legally I have to get a lawyer, and and the
Right.
other is you can't promote pedophilia because if you do, then you deserve to fucking die. And it's like those are the two parameters. So you're right, the flow. So let's go back to the flow. So yeah, I remember the August 7th, 2010, my 20th birthday, my first day of my sophomore year of college. Just moved into the frat house, and I remember getting way too high. And I've always been like a meathead kind of, idiot. And it just dawned on me, it just this overwhelming force that you need to study. You need to study. Like you have to study. And not only that, you have to choose the hardest thing. And it was so overwhelming that I just remember going like, I have to do this. It was something that I couldn't ignore. It's when you have to throw up, right? We've all been so hungover. you're nauseous and you're like, don't move too fast, don't move too, keep the fan on, keep the fan
Yeah.
on. That goes on for
Don't open your
hours.
eyes.
No, don't do that. Or you can go pull the car over. I need 30 seconds. You get out, you get it out, and you finish, and you go, oh my God, and you feel better. So I had that feeling. And it's the meme of like, hold my beer. I was literally like, "Hey guys, I'm going to bed," and they're like, "All right, Kerrigan's going to bed." And then the next day, I went to the library, and they're like, "That's weird, Tommy. That's not Tommy. Tommy's like, drinking until he can't stand and lift weights." Like, and I just went to the library the next day, and the next day, and the next day for classes that didn't matter, and I just started getting 4.0s, 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 and I was like, I have to be a doctor. And I went to the class counselor or guidance, whatever the fuck, and she was like, "Have you thought about maybe being like a nurse's assistant?" And I was like, why? And she was like, well, your GPA, and me being Irish, Puritan, hard-headed, I took that as a personal insult and was like, no, I will not be a nurse's assistant. And I studied nonstop, 4.0, 4.0, transferred to the University of Georgia, 30,000 beautiful women around me, went to one football game, 4.0, 4.0, 4.0, got ready for the MCAT. No, nobody does well in the MCAT. I'm like, all right, how long should you study? 6 weeks? I said, fuck that, 9 months. Did that, scored in the 96th percentile, aced it, aced it, aced it. And as I'm going through all of this, I was learning to study all day long. I approached it like working out. I'm like, yeah, you can brute force, but there are certain things you can do where even working out, it's like there are things that are counterintuitive. Like you need 8 hours of sleep. You got, hey,
Right.
like today, the last couple of days, my left pectoralis is hurt. You got to stop doing chest. And that's counterintuitive to the microcosm of you got to work out till it hurts. It's like a bigger level. You got to eat protein, be healthy, blah, blah, blah. And so as I was studying, I was just approaching it like weightlifting. And that's how I did so well in it. Like, how did you go from meathead to organic chemistry ace? And I'm like, they're the same thing. It's just repetition. And so I would do that all day long. And I realized that I could go for about 90 minutes before uh, diminishing returns started to accelerate. And so I played around with meditation once or twice in high school just as like a game and was like, oh, that's weird. And, didn't think about it again. And I remember one day going, well, I'm just going to sit down and meditate they didn't even know it was meditation for 10, 20 minutes. And I just let my mind slow down and I was clear and I was here. And then I would study again and I would get another 90 minutes out. Now, me being me, ironically, I'm using this thing about every once in a while I would dip down a little too far and
Right.
I'd realize, oh, it's all, I mean literally like, oh, it's all one. Like I am my grandfather and my grandson. I am this, I am that, I am the one, I am everything. And I'd come out of it and it was actually I'd have the opposite effect. I'd be like, why am I studying? Like I'm just a conscious being playing in the universe. And so then I'd have to kind of bring it back down. I'd be like, shut up and study. So I accidentally discovered meditation as a tool to study longer, to the point where I would be taking exams and I'd get through all of it and I'd be finished at the last and then I would sit there and I'd be going, well, I know this last answer. And I would sit there, put my pencil down and I would close my eyes and I would just sit there for 30 minutes until, people would be taking the test and leaving and the professor would be like, and they knew me as like, I had like the highest grade in the class. I literally had the highest grade in the class. And he'd be like, what are you doing? I'd be like, just I'm like, is the class over?
Yeah.
He's like, you still
Chill.
have 25 minutes. And I'm like, give me the 20 time. And I'd slow down. And as I stopped looking for the answer, I'm like, what is the benzene ring? What does it do with the tri? As I stopped looking, eventually it would just come.
Right.
And there it is. So doing that, doing that, doing that, excuse me. I'm going through the motions and I'm getting really obsessed with the brain. I'm like, the rest of the body's cool, but I kind of looked at it as just like it's just the gears in the machine, the muscle, the fibers. I'm like, it's fascinating as a system, but I don't give a fuck, right? I bet it's cool to learn how an iMac works. I don't care. What I want is to be able to talk to people like this. But the brain, I was like, this is back when I thought I am the brain, and I was like, well, this is so cool. You take caffeine or you when you meditate and I would feel the blood, I would feel the pressure. I think there's actually something in Buddhism called nimitta and it's called forehead pressure. I would
Yeah.
feel that when I would start to expand and I think it's like pushing the neocortex forward, which probably over millions of years is what led to humans being, but whatever. And I would get more and more into it to the point where when I would take off days, I would just read. I took a book, Neuropsychopharmacology, and I want to learn all of it. I want to read everything about it and learn about the brain. And I would learn about the brain and I would learn about the chemicals you could take for the brain, not just things like caffeine and Adderall, but what are the building blocks? Let's go back to the biceps. What are the building blocks? Phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, ginkgo biloba, vinpocetine, huperzine A, bacopa, monera, all these things, the structures. I'm going to build up the brain. And I knew that exercise helped and I knew that meditation helped. So I got really into it. I remember going to my professor one day and going like, I'm like, well, but where's the consciousness come from? He's like, well, this point in history, we can see where, apes started burying each other on purpose. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, I get what you're saying, but I'm like, I remember talking to him and I was like, I was like deep down at like the dendrites, the axons, the glial. And I just remember him smiling at me and going, Thomas, that's philosophy, not biology. I was like, fuck. And so I kept studying. And so what I wanted to do is like, how can I learn this? And I was like, I don't want to be a brain surgeon because to me, I'm like, that's still just the mechanics. I'm like, what is consciousness? And I was like, anesthesiology. So I started shadowing anesthesiologists where you go to the hospital and you get the thing you put on your resume. And what I was just always so fascinated at, like, belief didn't matter for that. And what I mean by this is a middle finger means something in our culture. In other cultures, it doesn't. And in I would imagine like Islam, right? You can't eat pork, right? So if
Right.
I ate pork to them, what the fuck are you doing? Versus, if they took, I'm Christian. If they were to burn a crucifix, it would have meaning to me, but not to them. What fascinated me about shadowing these anesthesiologists is it didn't matter who you were or what color your skin was or your age or anything. When that or not propranolol, when that propofol went into your brain, it turned you off. And to me, I was like, the consciousness comes from the brain. I'm like, there, because it doesn't matter what your belief is. It's no placebo.
Right.
There's not, that's the key. And I would watch, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an anesthesiologist. As I would meditate more and more and more, I started to get that feeling again from the at the frat house. This slow arising, the not almost a nausea. And I ignored it for it started my junior year and I pushed it away. And the meditations were getting deeper and deeper to the point where I was like, I'm getting too much from these. I need to just get focused so I can do this pre-calculus horse shit. Instead, it would be going deeper into just like, well, what becomes of nothingness? What was before the cosmos? And I'd be like, fuck, it's too
Right.
much acid. I'm trying to microdose. And like, it just kept arising and just little things. And so finally, I remember one night, towards the last of my last semester, I remember coming home from the bar and I was way too drunk and I got way too high. And I got on my laptop and I saw a quote from Maya Angelou. And I've never read any of her stuff. I just know she's an author. I just remember the picture and it was just a guy sitting at a waterfall and it said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story." And something in there told me, you are not to go to medical school. And I couldn't, it was as alien to me as 3 years prior saying I have to go to med school. And so I really started to think about that. And ironically, of course, now that I didn't give a shit, I started getting all these invites to medical schools. And in my mind, I'm like, I
Right.
don't care anymore. Like, I was hoping to get to the local regional one where they kind of accept anybody. I was getting invited out to Miami Miller School of Medicine, USC Keck in Los Angeles, Tulane in New Orleans, and all these things where it's like, congratulations, you got here. You were less than 1% of 1% of applicants. And in my mind, I'm like, I just started reading Alan Watts and Ram Dass, and there's a point to what I'm getting at with all this. As I got accepted into med school, I just remember the last day of college going, uh, I, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in Georgia. My older brother's at Georgia Tech. My other brother's at UNC Chapel Hill. My other brother's in Maryland. My parents live up in Maryland. All my friends are in Georgia. They're all taking off to different spots. I just started dating really my first serious girlfriend. I just got into med school in Miami. And people say you should be in a very good set and setting the first time you try psychedelics. I looked at it as all these things are flashing red and it's time to pull the ripcord. And so I tried mushrooms. I tried 2 grams of mushrooms on a sunny day with my friend out in the woods and we meditated. And I realized that I was not to do med school. And when that key turned, it dawned on me that when, oh my God, I don't have to go. And what do I want in life? So unlike 3 years prior, where I said, I'm going to get into med school through hell or high water, I will like break the world to get in. It was, I remember having the realization, I like working hard. I love working hard. I just do. But there can be love in life. And I know that sounds like an odd thing, but I didn't realize that till 23. So I had this rush of meaning, of the gears, right? Just like the rush of meaning once I started getting good grades, I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. And I was like, I don't want to go to medical school. And I remember thinking, I don't know what it is I want to do, but what I want to do is to be my own boss, to enjoy what I'm doing, and to feel love in my life. Now, 4 months later, I lost my older brother to suicide. And I just spiraled for years. But I look back at that. I don't think I was ever supposed to be a doctor. I also think I was supposed to lose my brother to suicide. I think that was the course that I was supposed to take. And I remember about 2 years after, I was debating taking my own life. And I decided, well, if taking your own life, I'm like, that's the craziest drug you can ever do because no one knows what's on the other side. And so, and it's not an exaggeration, I ate 38 grams of dried mushrooms, not 3.8, 38, and I took 1200 micrograms of acid. And it was like, if I can handle this, then I can handle suicide. Right? Right? People when I tell
been
that to
there.
people, they go, "No, I think you meant an eighth." And I went, "No, no, no. 38 grams. It was more than an
Yeah.
ounce, and 1250 micrograms of LSD." And I don't remember most of the come up. I remember, kind of becoming immobile, as Terrence McKenna would say. He's like, you take 2 grams, you giggle. You take 5 grams, you realize we're all just loving each other. You take 9 grams, and that's when you invent religion. So I'm at 38, and I'm laying there.
You're a floor hugger. Yeah.
Um, at the time, actually, I had a waterbed, so I'm on the waterbed, and um, I just remember vividly. It came to me and it said, like, you can commit suicide. Like you can. You're allowed to tap out. You will have to repeat the course.
Right.
And none of this was even about the other stuff, like you're gonna hurt your parents. It was just it was much more. It was like the universe, God, whoever knew that I was like not bluffing. And so kind of like I just remember sitting there and I can vividly remember it. And it's like you can do this if you want, but you're gonna repeat the course. And so I thought, okay, now what if I don't want to repeat the course? What do I have to do? And the first thing that came to me, it said, well, you're going to move home. And I didn't want to move home. I was 24. No, I was 26. I don't want to move home. You move out when you're 18. I'm not moving home. And my parents lived in Maryland. I lived in Georgia. It's not like I was nearby my friends. I would be gone. Okay. What else? You're gonna lose you're gonna lose your girlfriend. Now, why is that a big thing? I was a voluntary celibate till I was 23, not for religious reasons. I just truly wanted to find love. And that's
Right.
I'm more open. I talk more openly about my brother killing himself than I do this on the podcast. I used to write letters to my future wife, and I'd be like, I want that while living in a frat house at the University of Georgia, just women all around me. And so
Antithetical. Yep.
it wasn't just like you're gonna lose your girlfriend. It was like, no, she's my one. It was you're gonna move home, you're gonna lose her, and you're gonna be at home for a long, long time, and you might even fail there. But this is what you have to do if you want to go forward. And I remember thinking, it was kind of like a lazy thing. I was like, well, I don't want to repeat the course. Like, 'cause I took pre-calculus 4 times in college with true fail 3 times. And finally, the third time, my professor goes, dude, you have to take this class if you want to get into med school. And Yeah, you're
Right.
right. So I got an A. So the next day, I called my mom, and I knew I'd set things in motion that could no longer be undone. I said, Mom, I need help. I need to move home, which meant it's all fucked. I'm over. So my mom and dad are on a plane that day, and I'm changing my mind. I'm just thinking, no, it's over. I come move home. I think I'm going to be home for 3 weeks. I stay home for 5 years, and eventually, through a bunch of different things, start this podcast, and it's helped me learn whatever. But my point in all this, my own rambling, is saying that if you meditate and pray, to me that's like the clarity. To me that's the in between the studying breaks. You gotta slow it down. Oh, if I don't do well in organic chemistry, then I'm not gonna take biochemistry. And if I can't take this, then I can't. No, 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 no. Slow it down. Right now, you need to just learn chapter 14. You have a test tomorrow. It's October 2012. That's what you need to do. So to me, that's meditation and prayer. And anytime you can feel the friction when the gears on the bike catch when the tire finally hits the gravel and it gets out of the mud, and sometimes it's a good feeling and sometimes it's a painful, horrible feeling, but to me they are both the same. It is meaning. And when you
Yes.
approach that, there's a nanosecond moment and you can slow it down like I did. I'm sure that the whole decision when I took all the psychedelics, that probably could have been decided 2 years prior, but I had drawn it out over 2 years. It was, would you like to go forward? Or would you like to repeat the course? And I've found, even through the podcast early on, that don't repeat the course. For me personally, I've found don't repeat the course, don't avoid the course, go forward with the friction. And as you do, you become more aware, you become more grateful. And it has less to do with money. It has less to do with how new is my iPhone. It really is independent of all technology. And so what I think is that there are probably versions of Tommy that went to med school. Now let's extrapolate that 1,000 generations. And they're using antigravitics and element 115 and fucking Flyner, and they're doing all that. But what they really are still doing is they're just stuck in that I want to ace the class, I want to ace the class. I think that there are probably beings in that milieu that have woken up, and in much in the same way, like I interview a lot of Delta Force guys. They have the IR strobes because we're killing farmers who don't have IR, so they can tell who's who. I think that as you awaken, and I'm not egotistical enough to say I'm awakened, which maybe means is the op. I don't know if that's the irony there, but I think that's what you see is the IR strobes, or you turn on the thermal and then you can see all the soldiers moving and what you thought was just a dark forest. And I think that those probably exist within the alien realm. They probably exist within our realm. They probably also exist within, 1960s Vietnam. There was probably a dude that was watching B-52s bomb shit, but he had awoken. And
Right.
I think that, so to wrap up my own rambling, which was not nearly as beautifully and eloquently done as yours, is you're gonna have the psychotic alien UFO technologies who are interacting with the psychotic power control humans. You're gonna have those who are awake on that end. You're gonna have those who are awake on this end. But and this is one thing I always think about is deep state. We all agree it's evil that do terrible things, and they're in control of the military industrial comp, all the blanket statements, and then DARPA and all the advanced technology and the B2 and the B-21 and what are they doing out at Groom Lake, and you have to extrapolate that and then go, well, so they're probably going to be the first among us to develop space travel. Would that not apply to other species that the most ruthless get to that
It
point?
might indeed.
So, but
They
to wrap my whole thing up is I don't think the technology it's important. It is part of this consciousness that we are in. It is a facet. It is like all lessons. It is not an accident, but it's not the main course. And that's where I'm trying to, I guess, agree with you with is it's not. yes, it's technologically mind-blowing. You see something that's going light speed or faster or warp drives or whatever. But there's a bigger game, and it is the meaning. It is the woman that emails you after you do a show and says, you interviewed this book from this author that, my husband who died 30 years ago loved, and I've never heard anyone interview the author, and you got the author to laugh. And I just want to say, like, thank you for a brief moment, like bringing my husband back to life. And you look at that, and I can feel it now as I like say it, and you stop looking at the YouTube earnings, and you feel that email, and
That's the point.
you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Or you go, somebody emailed me the other week and was like, I lost my brother 20 years ago. I lost mine 12. And he goes, I'm just now like starting to accept that I said something that my older brother said to me on this past anniversary of John's suicide. I said, I hate that it still hurts so much. And my older brother, who's like the most hardcore punch you in the face, Irish muscle, like Hulk, not an emotional dude, he said, you should be so lucky that 12 years later, it still hurts so bad because that means that you had the privilege to love so deeply. And I,
No, even beyond that, though, it means you found meaning out of all of that.
and so when someone emailed me and he goes, and I had said that story, and they go, I now look at my grief 20 years later, and wow, how lucky I am. And so in my own ramblings, as you can tell, I just go by the off the cuff.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's not the I'll simplify it much easier. Play video games with my buddies at night on a big 90-inch TV. Has nothing to do with the video game. Has nothing to do with Vietnam or aliens or whatever. It's you guys laughing your asses off and having a great time after a long day. And where Drew Bob tells you about a guy named Cliff. That's what I'm trying to get to is
Right.
so I don't know if I made sense in any of
No,
that
no, you do.
vomit, but I'll hand it over to you.
So the thing is, you're recreating every step that everybody goes through in this journey. You're recognizing those impacts of the journey in your life as they occurred. And now looking back on them as though a past occurrence, you're stitching together a more complex level of meaning out of each of those individual points of meaning that occurred. And so I fully understand. And so my journey was I was gifted half a sheet of Owsley acid microdots. Okay, the best acid anybody could get. I spent
The
42
original
days.
Owsley. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gifted that because I gave a guy a lift when his car had broken down, and he had a backpack full of sheets of that. And so he ripped a half a sheet off and said, "Here." And so I spent 42 days on acid. Every time I came down, I'd eat and then I'd go back up again.
Yeah.
It was the
Ram Dass.
cleanest experience ever.
Ram Dass
But I find
style.
but I find LSD to be so limiting that I dropped it. And I went on to the naturals because of the nuance and the extra elements that are brought in by the biology that you get out of the mushrooms. And so I then became an aficionado of mescaline and psilocybin and all of its different forms from all of these different ways of achieving it. And then I realized at some point that um, that too was a dead end. I can do it now; it's not a problem. I don't because it's not going to be instructive, right? But I might at some point, and I've often fancied of going out on mescaline. Making some because I got into the chemistry as well. I would do some clean, pure, slow crystallization of mescaline extract from particular cacti,
What was his
and
name?
I would get
Shugan Alexander. Was it Shugan? Shulgin?
sugar. Yeah.
Pycal and Thical. Yeah.
Exactly. I've got both books,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I was not into the synthetics because nature provides moderators and nuance within there that get you to greater levels of meaning. But the drugs are not the point. You can get there without the drugs. Some people get there through being in prison. Some people get there through being imprisoned in their own minds to the circumstances in which they live. And eventually you come to this point where you understand the level of meaning flowing through you back to the monad. And so you get to the idea that, oh, there's very little point to suicide. in my life because I know I would have to repeat. I'd end up here again in the next life. And it doesn't matter if I suicide in this life because I will have a next life with another body. And the body is the expression of the life. That's why I say this body's life, because I will have had other bodies and have had the lives that were associated with them. And I will do this in the future because this is the nature of our reality. And the people that deny the reincarnation and all of that, that's fine. I don't have a problem with them. I'm congenial, live as you need to live, right? Who am I to say?
As
Okay.
they're telling you reincarnation's not real. You're like, I remember when you told me that last time.
In the past life.
Remember? Oh no,
Yeah.
you finished their sentence. Like, how'd you know? I'm like, remember when you were Napoleon and
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. I'll see
Yeah.
you
And
again. I'll see you again though. I'll see you on the far side of the Andromeda galaxy. Yeah.
right, in this next life, right?
Yeah.
And we don't reincarnate, and the rules for the reincarnation and everything can be examined to a huge degree, and you get into the minutia of it all, and all of that kind of thing. But really, it's not meaningful to know
I'm
all of this.
I'm delaying my next show by 30. You can tell I'm a professional. I'm delaying my next
Okay.
because I want to make sure that I have because I had 2 hours for you, but I want to make sure we do it. I have an extra 30. So please, and everyone wants to see how the sausage is made. This is how it's made. Is me going.
This is how it's
There's
done,
there's
right?
no like, hey, time out, I'll cut this out. This is like mid-sentence, me pulling up my phone after telling you the importance of putting your phone in airplane mode. Yeah,
Right.
hold on. Running 30 minutes late. See you 1:30. It's
So
but it's
it's an
like
issue of walking in the stream, just as you had said, your eloquent description of your own life. You were coming to the conclusion that every time you step in the stream, that no one ever steps in the
in the
same
same
stream
stream.
twice. And it's impossible for you to do so, not only because the water of the stream is moving, but because your body is ephemeral. It doesn't exist. So it is moving as well. And so the foot you used to put in the stream the last time is not your foot now.
Even if
And
you
so this
repeated the stream, there's one or two cells or a couple trillion
that
that
aren't
shifted
there.
or died
Right.
or grew,
Right.
or you
And
can never.
also, by the way, it's all illusion.
Oh yeah, and
Okay.
then there's
So
the other caveat: is this none of it's fucking real? That's the
exactly,
that's the little
exactly. It
asterisk.
only
It's
exists in our minds. And
it's
we
sorry,
and
I
so
interrupted you, but go back to the drugs because so I talk about how important psychedelics are in my life.
yeah,
Did them the day I graduated, so that was December 13th, done December 16th, 2013. I did them on the 1 year anniversary of my brother's suicide. I figured, why not? People look at me now and go, why would you do that? And I was like, I don't know, just I want to
you
say,
felt the need. You felt there
I
was meaning there.
well, it was so dark and fucked up. I just felt let's
Yeah,
go darker.
yeah.
And it actually wasn't. I remember feeling him around me and him saying it's all good. And so, and then the third time I did it was uh June 23rd, 2016, and that's when I took the overwhelming amount and I couldn't I just remember writing down C well actually that's very ironic. Cliff. I wrote down CLYF. Choose love, you fuck. Because I decided that I actually wrote I'll send it to you. I actually wrote a trip report, like a 90-page trip report after, and it came down to I boiled it all down to choose love, you fuck. And it went from like ancient man to the stars. It was like you can choose one or the other. You can do it with love or you can do it with fear, but it was choose love, you fuck. It probably should have been instead of fear. But when people ask me, they're like, oh, so how important are these psychedelics? I have not done them since June 23rd, 2016. I don't feel they would do anything for me. And it's, I
Right.
believe what Ram Dass said, and I apologize for interrupting you, but he goes, the Bible, the wedding feast. He goes, you can go to the wedding if you're uninvited. You can sneak in, enjoy the food, the fire, but eventually you will be thrown out of the tent and there will be great gnashing of teeth. And he goes, that's LSD and psilocybin. You can get there. You can get there. You can go up and go, oh my God, I see it all. But eventually he goes, all right.
You have to come back.
And you go, well, how can I get back to that point? And that's the long work of going,
It's
oh,
called the long walk.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah. In
Okay.
Vipassana meditation, you're a householder, you're sweeping, I'm wiping the counter or whatever. And the saying is, it is only to the outsider observing the householder in his duties that believes the householder is captivated by his duties, right? Doesn't exist. So as you're doing all of that, you're in a process of active meditation. And I've done the really rough sit seiza 12 hours kind of meditation, right? Zen meditation where you're in with a group in a dojo and they come and they walk you on the
Yeah.
back with a stick,
Yeah.
right? To get your attention, to bring you back to the moment, all of that. And I've done that repeatedly. I did all of that. I started in on that concurrent with still taking psychedelics, but the amount of psychedelics I've taken, especially the psilocybin and the mescaline, extends for years. I could not, I'd have to, I could, but I'd have to sit down and take a lot of time to figure out exactly how many episodes I actually had, right?
Sure.
So, but here's some things about this. Turns out that now scientists are saying psilocybin is the route to anti-aging, that there's so many different anti-aging drugs within psilocybin mushrooms that we've overlooked all these years that we're just flabbergasted. And they're coming up with all kinds of new products and processes basically off of the psilocybin and its effective moderating molecules, and that indeed they're anti-aging. And I think that of myself, that I've taken so many that I've somehow stopped or unwound my aging clock. And so I'm 73 now, but I can anticipate living another 70 years. I don't have that thing inside me that says you're an old man and passing
That's
by, right?
that's something that's recently come. I'm 36. It's come into my meditation is just this little. It's interesting you say that. Just this little. I've been meditating daily since 2008. It's just this little idea of like you think you have 80. What if you live to 250? And no part of me is like, oh, that's wild. It's just this. It's this natural thought of like, what if I do?
And then the next thought occurs, what the fuck am I going to do?
Well, and then you go, I have all this time. And
Right.
to me, I go, I get so excited about I'm sober 2.5 years. I go, I want to get even better at this. I want to get, I want to walk that path even go to better. Fuck, dude, I'm 36 years old. I live in downtown. I can talk to people. I can talk to women. My favorite fucking thing, I'm out cold by 8 p.m. I'm
Same
up
here.
sunrise. I get
Yep.
up, 110 push-ups, 23 pull-ups, do it twice, lift weights, come up and geez, I'm wide awake. Call my mom for 5 minutes because I love my mom. And then I take a shower. I meditate. I meditate on that chair, and and I do the and I listen to audiobooks and I do the podcast and I just try to bring as much honest and me energy to it, and it wraps up, and then I plug the guy and I make the thumbnail and I put it in, and I do intermittent fasting, so by the end of the day I eat my meal, and caloric restriction, always caloric restriction, even if I don't need to lose weight. I think it's good discipline, and I play some video games with some friends, and as it gets quieter and it gets darker and I go and I now I'm going to bed. And dude, I go to bed and I mean this with I don't know if it's visible. My brother's initials, John Keenan
Yeah.
Kerrigan, swear on his grave. I go to bed 99 out of 100 times, and I mean this with the same excitement that 10-year-old me went to bed on Christmas Eve with. And I mean that
Yeah.
you pass lie detector.
I do
It's
not doubt you a minute.
It's like I'm psyched to have you on,
Yeah.
like more than normal. Yeah, I still get jacked up for guests. I've had on Roseanne Barr. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fucking sick. But just the process itself, I go, I lay down at night and I go, I can't fucking wait to wake up. I can't wait to see that dark, inky sky, to go hit the gym, to see it come over the horizon. I can't wait. I'm reading an audiobook right now about DARPA, and it's called The Imagineers of War by Sharon Weinberger. And there's this crazy guy named Nicholas Christophilus, and what is he going to do next? And oh my God, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put on a clean shirt, and I'm going to do all this stuff, and I'm going to talk, and and it's I can't fake it. And to me, I'm like, this is the long walk to, oh, you used to have to get really fucked up on a Friday after a long week of class because work sucks and you get drunk and I'm here and I'm alive and in the moment. And I don't do any of that. But what's happening is my existence itself is slowly becoming that energy of Friday night when you're 22 and you just got the
Right.
beer and you just turn on the music and you and your buddies are hanging out. And even before you have that first sip, you feel intoxicated. I think Terrence McKenna said temporal backwash, where you can
Yeah.
feel a trip before you take the acid.
You feel it as soon as you put it in your
Well, he
mouth,
well he
right?
would say sometimes for a big one,
It'd be the day before.
you would feel it before you even knew you had it. Like
Yeah.
let's say somebody gave you the sheet,
Yeah.
and dude, I feel that it's not as strong, it's not as like psychedelic yet, but I can. So what the fuck am I gonna do for 250 years, dude? I can feel it every day. I, more and
Okay,
more.
so
I don't even
we
want to
know what you're
say.
going to do, though, is the sages have told us, and they tell us in these
Yeah,
sayings.
sorry if I keep
What you're just,
interrupting you. Sorry, I get
yeah,
excited.
and that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But they tell us that you're going to take this long walk. So you're going to take this long 250-year walk, and then you have to stop and ask yourself. And then you'll know the answer instantly. What are you walking to? What are you attempting to find? Will you find it when you're there? And of course, you have it now,
Yeah,
every step of the walk, and
I'm
you're
here.
and you're attempting to walk to yourself, right? To meaning within yourself. That's the only purpose of these lives. And when you pass and you go into get a new life, you have to rediscover this all over again. As you get through these lives, you get better and better at them. There is less that is withheld from you from life to life to life. And then perhaps you might get into the situation in which I find myself, where I have memories that exist before I was in this body. And
Hmm.
so I have memories of being dead before this life,
I've had
and
I've
they are
had
attached
I've
and they
had
are
those.
attached to this body somehow, right? So consciousness is not within the flesh. It
Yeah.
never occurs within the flesh, right? So there's no point to concentrating on the flesh aspect of it. But I bring these memories with me, and each and everything in our lives is about a choice in and of that particular moment. And it is those individual moments that form our entire life, but it is the same moment. We're always in the present. There is no such thing as past. There is no such thing as future. And so you're just making choice after choice after choice, but it's basically the same choice putting you on that same path to the discovery of to the experience of yourself, because it is not you that discovers yourself. It is the monad discovering you, meaning for itself as you experience that meaning within yourself, which is a little complicated, but not too bad,
I was
right?
gonna say you might
And
laugh.
so we are
I,
all feeling for the monad, that because it needs us to do that. The monad is without anything. It has no name. It is everything. It is the absolute. It has no body, but yet it has every body that exists, because we're all within the monad. And so you get really deep with this stuff, and you start reading all of the everything that everybody has ever spewed out, attempting to explain this to themselves, and in the process, they're thinking they're explaining it to others. So I love those writers like Ram Dass, like Alan Watts, who are quite certain that they know nothing.
That's the best. That's the best part is when they get. Dude, there's this great Ram Dass lecture from, and I've listened to all of it. So right after my belly diet, I decided I was going to go to pharmacy school. So I did. I still hadn't quite realized that it wasn't school, so I had to do an extra year. And so it was me and my buddy from high school. He was doing an extra year too. We hadn't talked in a while, so we got a house, and we were both taking post grad classes or whatever. And we had this attic in this old house in Athens, Georgia. And we went up there and we had a third friend and we paid him in psychedelics and he made all these tapestries for us. We had all these bed sheets, all these crazy, and we hung them up in this attic and we made it a tent. And it was again there's poeticism in it in that it was an illusion. It was because it was a rectangular room, but we had made a tent and floor, ceiling, everything was uh all tie-dye and there was just these mats, and we would go up there and we'd listen to Ram Dass and Timothy Leary and Alan Watts, and we would listen to them. And you listen to Ram Dass, he'd go through the first time he tried acid with Leary in Boston, and then he went to the, as he always says, the Himalayas, the Himalayas, and he'd go and so he met Neem Curly Baba, and he was there and he did the 30 years. Yeah, they hit you with the stick and you're there and you're meditating. And you hear him go through all this, all the importance of it. And you're listening to it at the time, you're like, fuck, this is what I have to do. But there's this great lecture from him in like the 90s, towards he died in 2019, but he's at the end and he's giving this lecture and somebody's asking him about that. They're like, you finally did it. Like you left you left Harvard, you left everything, you dropped it all. And you went and you did the meditation in the Himalayan mountains. Like you did the thing where it was. And they're like, did it bring you there? Like, should we go? Ram Dass pauses and he goes, I think it's all kind of horse shit.
It's
And
all
they go,
illusion.
what? And he goes, when was that? He goes, that was now. And he goes, set an alarm. He goes, right? He goes, make an appointment in 30 days for yourself. And when you get there, ask yourself what time it is. It's now. And so as you're
Right.
saying, well, what am I walking towards? I've had people ask me on the show, you know, well, where are you going? And I used to have, I want a better computer. I want a better camera. I want this, I want that. I want this, I want that. And I finally did the things I needed to do. I moved home closer to parents. I lost weight. I got sober, blah, blah, blah. Tommy, what do you want now? I want to be able to do what I'm doing today, tomorrow. What else do you want? Nothing. I want this. So what am I walking towards? I'm walking towards now. I'm watching the best movie I've ever seen every day. And every night I get amnesia and I get to watch it again. And I mean, like you said, you can feel it in your body. Like you just, I know I'm why it's how the birds somehow have things in their heads that line up with the magnetic fields. Like, I can just feel myself aligning. And what am I going towards? I have no idea. It might be that the next thing in my life is I find out tomorrow I have terminal cancer and it will be horrible. And I will eventually accept that that too is supposed to happen. And that is so we ask, what are you walking towards? I'm here, man. I'm walking towards
You're
here.
walking towards the
It's
present. You're walking within the present. And
sorry,
also don't
I keep
accept,
interrupting you. I
yeah,
get
that's
so
right. Don't
excited.
accept the terminal cancer stuff. I've been there.
I
I've
know
had
you have. I
cancer.
know you have.
I've had cancer 3 times, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I died from it. And by the way, it was that last death at age 65 that fully eradicated the idea of from me that consciousness exists in any way, shape, or form within the body. It is mediated by our mitochondria. It's
Hmm.
not in our brains. Our brains are the what we laughingly call
The,
conscious
the antenna.
interpreters. Antenna, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you get it, or when I can't say that anybody else would experience this, but I see allusions to it in some writing. But when you get into the deep zazen meditation and you're doing the overnight kind of sessions, if you do it long enough, you might get to the point, as I did, where you're actually touching the void. Okay, so you're able to be in the now so presently that you're able to be there as one instant becomes another, and there is this void, and you
It's
can sort of touch it,
yeah.
right?
You can't even put
And
it into words. I've been there a
correct,
couple. I've been
that's
there a
the thing.
couple times. It's
There is no word, there is no real language for it. The best we can do is to try and bring it into this 3D reality and use some kind of an analog, and that doesn't capture what happens. But once you've touched the void, it changes you. Okay, that is a point of change that you can walk into. And you can say, I am now changed as a result of this particular experience. That's kind of rare. Okay. So I too lost my brother to mental illness. And it was a horrific battle because he wasn't sane enough to kill himself. And so he had to die slowly and all of this. And the whole family disintegrated around it. And I
can
watched him.
may I ask of what, or would you rather private?
Okay, so of the salt
You
polio,
don't,
it was the salt polio vaccine.
okay.
Okay, so we were both in the United States. I was in South Carolina. We were in South Carolina. We received the salt polio vaccine in the late 50s and going into the 60s. And then we were my dad was military. We were transferred to Germany. And in the process, they lost our medical records, and we got to Germany and had to take the salt polio vaccine again because there was no proof we'd already had it. And it damaged both of us almost instantly. to some great degree, and it damaged my mind. My seeking with psychedelics was an attempt to recover my mind.
Mm.
My brother was not capable of doing that. He couldn't handle. He'd taken psychedelics, but they were just inimical to him. They just didn't work for him, right? So it didn't. It was not an out for him, and he ended up being a paranoid schizophrenic until he died at age 55. A very horrific kind of a life, right? And so that destroyed the family, destroyed me repeatedly, and destroyed him. But it's you know, water off my back as I go through the life. It was supposed to
Yeah.
happen. I've had worse in previous lives. I undoubtedly will have worse in subsequent lives. That's just the way it is. Um, but it's a situation of where realization and meaning do come from all of these incidents over our lives. And as you age, you get to the point, I assume most people will, that if they're on the path of awareness, I don't call it enlightenment, just awareness. But if you're on that path, you will eventually, I think, start stitching together the meaning, the memory of all of the incidences of meaning. That was one thing that did come out of psychedelics, was a remarkable ability to recover memory that I had not been aware of prior to that. So I have the ability to remember all the way back to the point that I came into this body. And no one comes into the body at birth. We all come in several months later.
Hmm.
Usually, the sign of that is when the infant starts crawling. That means the consciousness has congealed within that body and is bonded to it and started taking over. And so that might be 90 days, 4 months, whatever, right? It just varies. But I have memories that are attached to this body that existed in that space between lives. Why this should be, I don't answer. I don't answer why questions. It's impossible for me to know that. I can just describe my experience with it and let it be at that level. There's a remarkable freedom in that, a huge ton of freedom. This is the liberation that they discuss in all of the meditation aspects or meditation practices. You get to the point in meditation where you suddenly have and it's sudden. It was with me and others I've discussed this with. They get a point where suddenly you just don't give a shit anymore. If someone wants to talk about your deepest, darkest fears, you're prepared to do so, right? Or the horrid things you've been through, because there is not necessarily meaning in that, but you may discover some meaning in the discussion of these things after the fact of it all, because we're always searching for meaning for the monad. That's why we're here. That's what impels us, right?
Right.
And so it's a very difficult life. It is not easy being a human. There's a reason the poets say ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do, then die. Okay, that's our purpose. We are here to do things in order to generate or connect to meaning. And then at the end of all that, we are to die. And so why worry about it? We're never going to be able to reason the why aspect of it. And so you have this marvelous freedom of saying, I don't know, nor do I care. It's not meaningful to me to do that, right?
It's that no, that deep that you can't put into words. And again, so that crazy psychedelic trip, where I tell people now, and they're like, "That's that's genuine. What the fuck were you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I was getting ready. I was gonna kill myself." And so
Right.
that's what I was doing. I've gone deeper through meditation than that.
Oh yeah.
And yet, well, you know what you're talking about is it's sudden. It's you're no longer seeking. You're you are you are there. I am that I
I
am.
am, period.
Yeah, I am. It's just being here.
Yeah.
The words just they mean nothing. And in that, and it turns into it's awareness. But what you realize is it's not happiness. Happiness is a spectrum. It's happiness and sadness. It's awake and fatigue. It's sick and healthy. It's sunny and cold.
It's
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 not that.
something of the body,
No, no,
correct.
it is, and it's not happiness. For me, it is just wonder. It is joy, and it is wow. I I get to be, as Alan Watts said, you look out at the stars at night, those are fireworks in celebration of realizing you exist. And it is so beyond so beyond. It's not like, well, I don't care if I do well on the test. You're like, I don't care if the weight of a proton changes and the universe is gone. You're like, I am, and I'm here. And then you come back down and you go, how the fuck do I get back there? But like, but like that is, and you say, and that's the thing is like, no, no, you don't answer the why. You don't go, oh, this is why the universe. You go, I can never, the seeker is not what is sought. The watcher, or the seer is not what is seeing. The observer is not what is observed. And you sit there. And I think Terence McKenna said it. He goes, part of it is realizing that it doesn't wrap up. He goes, you sit with the messiness, all the loose ends, all the unfinished things.
And you're calm with it. You don't care.
And you don't look at it as, well, I didn't get to finish all of it. You go, no, those were all part of the path. And it's so easy now, 12 years later, to talk about the lessons I learned from losing my brother. I got on, and I know you as well. I'm not making light of it. I mean, you said it disintegrated your family. I remember my dad said the next day, he goes, these things destroy families, and I will not let it destroy ours. And to my father's credit, he didn't let it. He held us
Right.
together in that brute force Irish way. But we stayed together, and now we all live together. We're much closer, and it's beautiful. But I'm not making light of that. But when you're there and it's just being, you are okay with not knowing because there's nothing to you just are, and it is so. I mean, you get light, you get it's ecstatic. You don't have fingers and toes. You're a sphere of consciousness, but not even that because that's still an idea. It's just this deep over, just this love of everything. You look at and you open your eyes and for the brief moments before it goes away, but you just look at a pillow on your bed and you're just like the beauty of like the fact that a pillow exists, that it was invented, that we found a way to put our head down.
Everything is perfect.
You go to, oh, it's perfect. And you go to the bathroom and you turn a faucet and is that clean, drinkable water? Oh my God. And like you start looking around, you go, I have vertical walls. Most people live in caves. And
Right,
then you
right.
go, and then here's the wildest thing is in college when I have roommates, I would feel I would feel their consciousness. I would feel, oh, that guy's doing good. I would feel my friend Bart. I'd go, something's up with Bart. And you don't go wake him up because then you come across as a psychopath. Like, hey, I
Right.
felt you, brother. These old South boys.
Yeah, right.
They pull out a shotgun on waking and what you doing? But you
Right.
talk to Bart later in the day. You go, hey, what's up, man? You find out something's gone. You feel people's consciousness. Like you feel, and then you realize you're like, oh, dude, I'm just touching the baseline of this. This is the, you think you've
And think about what
experienced
it
it.
means, though, the you're feeling. And so obviously your consciousness is not bounded by your body. Obviously, your consciousness has the ability to receive and send because others are sending to you. Obviously, therefore, all consciousness exists at the same level and the same substrate, so to speak, and can intercommunicate.
If you raise
Not
yourself,
necessarily with humans.
you're
Right.
raising everyone.
Right. And I never say people raise their consciousness, right? Because you cannot alter consciousness because that is a gift from the monad. You
It,
can't change it. You can't do anything to it. The only
it
thing you can alter is your awareness and your experience of it. And becoming aware of your experience is what usually people refer to as raising their consciousness,
it's a
but they're not.
limitation of words. Yeah, no, it's
Correct. Correct.
I
And the
know
limitation of thought,
yeah.
right?
I'm just sorry. I'm just getting so excited, but that's I always think about like the JFK. Don't ask for easier lives. Ask to be stronger men or something. And I remember
Right.
breaking that down in my mind. I'm like, that's asking for the same thing. Instead of going, don't ask for 5 pound dumbbells. Ask for biceps to pick up 20 pound dumbbells. I'm like, yeah, but you're still asking for the same thing. You're just less strength. So then I went.
Right.
Well, then no. No, JFK. Sorry, you're wrong. You're a good guy, but it's not stronger men. Oh, I want the I want the courage to be a stronger. I'm like, well, no, I'm still asking for an amplifier, an enhancer. Okay, well then give me the understanding that what I'm
There
doing
you
is
go.
important, and then
Recognition.
but then even that goes away, and you go. Finally, I boil it down to what is the only thing I can ask for? Awareness. You
Correct.
don't wake up in the morning. You don't go in. It's time to get up. Sometimes you do, and it's weird, but you just you just wake up. That's that's meditation. Is
And
all of a
if you
sudden
have
you go,
awareness, you get up then and you do stuff.
and then you decide what am I going to do with it. And one thing you can do is just go, I'm just going to have fun, which is great. Another thing you can do, and you don't have to. And here's the big one is what I found is you don't have to, but what you can do is try to help others. Now you don't have to do that. There's no you must help
So,
others.
so we can simplify a lot of this and just say that when you wake up, the only thing you can do, the only thing you have any aspect of control over is what level of challenge you seek. And so,
Hmm.
trying to help others is a challenge. Can I achieve that? Can I overcome the limitations in this particular moment of this particular now and aid these people? And if I do so, will they actually be served? Because many times it's not wise to aid people. You need to let them experience their own karmic
You don't
repercussions from their own choices, right? And
correct.
perhaps the best you can do is simply point out to them, and it may seem mean and cruel at the time, this too arises from your choice. Right. So your misery of the moment arose from your own choice. And you are choosing to be um, to suffer. Okay. You will still experience the pain, but it's your mind that chooses to turn that pain into suffering. And so it's your choice in all of these things. Now, I'm of the opinion that I'm sort of like Kennedy in that sense. Always choose the hardest path, always choose the biggest challenge, because then I have the potential for the bigger reward,
Hell yeah.
etc.
We're going
And
to the moon.
I don't take pain as personal suffering. And it is true that some of the hardest things you can do in this on this path, some of the more difficult things that challenge you even greater than you can imagine, is to be dealing with someone else and your tendency to try and take pain away from them, right? Because if you're a compassionate person,
I,
compassion can limit you as well as challenge you. And the challenge in compassion is being able to see the bigger picture and to know when it's appropriate for you to choose to aid their suffering or ignore their issues, right?
yeah, I mean,
It's a tough road.
no, I mean, it's whenever I have episodes like this, I'll have to warn my mom first. I say, don't watch this one. It's still
Yeah.
hard for her when I talk about, I think about, so I knew something was up with my brother probably around summer 2011. He took his life in April 2014. I was at the University of Georgia in Athens. He was at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Fucking brilliant, doing classified research for the Air Force. I say it with all respect, smoking hot girlfriend, lawyer of 10 years, just an angel. He had it all. He's the funniest motherfucker that ever lived. He could draw everything. And I wish he was alive for more than anything, just because I think you get such a kick out of like some of the guests I've had on. But I would try so hard to first like brute force it. And then, I would try to say like, man, I feel so much better when I don't drink and I exercise. And he would
Right.
kind of say
Lead by
like,
example.
he would
Yeah.
say like, hey, yeah, thanks. And like, I could tell it wasn't working. And it finally losing him. And it took a long time to realize that like, I remember my dad told I was this past April 15th, his passing. 12 years later, and I always think I'm fine. And I remember I did a podcast and I finished it and I just sat here and cried like a baby. And I remember calling my dad, and I call my mom every day. But I don't call my dad every day. I'll text with my dad because that's, we're Irish men, and
Yeah.
we're men.
Yeah.
I remember calling my dad
Yeah.
and just
Yeah. We're
crying.
men.
We're men.
We're
We're men.
dirty. We
Dad,
know.
I'll give you a hug when I see you. And but I remember sitting here crying in this chair for this is a couple months ago for 2 hours, and my dad telling me that, and it really helped. He said your brother made a choice,
Right.
and it
And
finally,
you can't second guess that choice.
and I finally realized I can do well in the MCAT. I can work out because it's me versus matter. It's me versus
Right.
my own. When there is free will, you can't, doesn't matter how much you love her. If she doesn't love you,
Nothing you can do about it.
and So when you come to the heightened more awareness, more being, more I am, your first thought is I have to help everyone, and then you realize, hey man,
That ain't gonna work.
it's not going to work. So like in 2020, 2022, so I get all these panic attacks after my brother died, and I still do. In 2022, I was lucky enough to hang out with some of the Delta Force guys that I've had on the show, legit fucking like CIA guys, and naturally, we were just shooting belt-fed machine guns and just getting fucked ass up. And I fell down and I hit my head on a brick. And I just remember, I thought I was gonna die, and I was like, I'm gonna go wake up Dale. Dale's in Delta Force. And my buddy Don, who was a Marine, and he had some medic training. He was like doing all the tests for the stuff they would do in Iraq when a bomb went off.
Yeah.
And you're like, can you feel this? Can you hear this? Can you remember these numbers? Can you say all this stuff? And I remember going. I was like, I'm gonna go ask Dale. Dale's the youngest member of Delta Force in history, by the way. The average age is like 40. He was 23. And I'm like, I'm gonna go wake Dale. And I remember Don looked at me and he goes, if you wake Dale, it's the last thing you're ever gonna do. And that's and then but so I look at that and I go, so I went through that pain. And what happened after that is every time I drank alcohol, the next day I'd get a panic attack. So the same people, if you drank for 6 months straight and they stop and they say it can kill you, and it can,
Right.
if I drank 2 beers right now, when I'll get intoxicated. When it leaves my body, I will almost have a seizure, like have to go to the ER.
Right.
And so the point in me saying all that is a truly aware being might have pushed me aside and go, don't fall and hit your head on that brick. But what happened? Instead, I went through these panic attacks for years. And I finally got to a point where I accepted that I have to stop drinking, and I don't understand what the reasoning is. Because I didn't stop drinking because I was drinking once a week, but I just have to stop. And I just remember writing on my phone during a panic attack. I said, God has said to stop drinking. And basically, like, you're not read in on the rest of the program. It's a classified program.
Right.
And my
Ours
point,
is not to reason why.
and so I went, and I can now look back and go, that suffering that led to losing 60 pounds, that led to, and as you remove these other pleasures, I'd start to go, well, maybe I'll just get my own life in order. Maybe I'll start going to bed early. Maybe I'll start,
Right.
and without knowing, I started that long walk to where I am. And it never would have happened had I not cracked my fucking, I still got a scar somewhere on that. And so, to what you're saying is you wake up and you want to help. You, when you see that friend and you realize they're going through that breakup and you guys are 18 or 20 or 25, in hindsight, the more mature friend will go, he needs to experience this. He needs
Right.
to
And
experience
that's not
that.
easy.
And it's not
That's the
easy.
hardest thing you can do.
It's to sit back. And what you can do is you can sit there and you can be aware. And if they ever find themselves coming to you and go, dude, I don't know, I'm just feeling down, then
There
you
you
can
go.
go, what do you want to talk about, man? But if
Right.
you try to stop them from hitting the head on the brick, if you say, don't fall in love with her, you are messing up. And then furthermore, you also don't know what karma you're avoiding yourself. Maybe part of your thing was to watch others get hurt and to be okay with it. And that's
And be
your
able to
ascension.
apply it to yourself.
And
Correct.
and as it goes, and I know I'm rambling on here, but like what I found through the podcast was, so for me early on, it was interviewing all the doctors during COVID, Dr. Malone, Dr. McCullough. Before they went on Rogan, I got banned from YouTube for having him on. People are like, you should have this guy on Joe Rogan. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was banned 6 months ago. The White House is tweeting at Rogan, calling him a neo-Nazi. I'm like, call me a neo-Nazi. I need the PR. Like, I had them on first,
Right.
and I got blue eyes. Like, give it to
Life
me.
is not fair.
Right, right. And so in 2020 election shit and all this stuff, and so finally, I came to the realization. I'm like, what is the one thing that I can do on this podcast? Sure, it's fun. You and I are having a great time, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
I hope people get things out of it. And Cold War books and, whatever. And I started interviewing these guys, like you talked about, those sniper guys, um, uh, that started ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. So above Delta Force is something called Ground Branch. And it's that they recruit from Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. They are started under Eisenhower. It is Black
Right.
Ops. There's only like ever 100 or 150 of them in the world at one time. You proof this is a simulation is the fact that I'm friends with like 10 of them. It's fucking what, right? they were there in 1993 in Mogadishu, and they had been, and Baz, the guy that started it, his quote is, I finally realized after serving under, Carter, Reagan, everything, he goes, there's more to life than overthrowing small governments. You can save small lives. And what they did, they were in Mogadishu, the whole Black Hawk Down thing, and he was with all these other Black Op, fucking Rambo guys, and they'd seen everything, death, civilians, everything, and they saw these like two kids walking around. And they're like we have to stay, and our job is we're in this safe house. We're at the tip of the spear, and they'd seen a million kids before. And he goes, so we're all in this like this house, sleeping. Somebody's got fire watch. And Baz goes, finally, he goes, I sit up, and he goes, and like I thought everyone was asleep, and he goes, I can't stop thinking about those kids. And he goes, and they all sat up, and nobody was sleeping. And they're like, I cannot stop thinking about those kids. And Baz went, he said he went up onto the roof and he's looking up at the stars and he heard God tell him, he goes, I literally heard the words, um, you are to save children. And so they started this thing, the Association for the Recovery of Children, where it's not like not knocking like cancer awareness or something, but for the sake, it's not like a wristband where it's
Right.
awareness. These are guys with night vision and silenced machine guns that they get authority from the federal government to do what the government won't, probably because the government's behind it. But they'll go physically rescue, and I mean kick down fucking doors in the middle of the night, grab kids, like throw a Kevlar vest around them, and like smuggle them out like a football. And
Right.
they've saved one kid per month since 1993, 12 months out of the year, 33 straight years with a 100% success rate. They get the kids back to the parents. If the parents are the ones that sold them into it, they find them a new place. Sometimes it's over borders, sometimes it's overseas, sometimes it's in the United States, but it's as legit gets. I mean, you look at this team, like I've seen pictures of them and I can't share it because of OPSEC, but you look at them, you're like, oh, are they going to get bin Laden? And it's like, no, they're going to rescue kids. And I look at that and I went, and there's a point to this whole rambling. And I've realized, like with the podcast, and as I feel like I'm going on that long road, and I'm finding more and more internal peace, and I feel like I've done a lot, helped talk about my brother's suicide, and helped with the COVID awareness, and the blah 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 blah, and all that good stuff, and sobriety and weight loss. And I was like, this is something where I feel this isn't a choice where you got to let your friend fall in love with the girl. I go, these are kids that you have to help them because that my logic is this. You need to save these kids so that they, and it sounds mean, but so that they can fuck up their lives on their own, like me. And
There's a different aspect of that you're not considering though.
okay.
Consciousness comes from consciousness exists and it can interact with itself, with other aspects of itself. And that's what's going on with these kids. And this is one of those where it's not theirs to reason why, it is just theirs to do. Because their consciousness is able to receive and is put on that path, they know that it is not a choice that they made. It was a choice that was offered to them,
Hmm.
right? And so they decided to take that action. They, of course, take onto themselves karma, and there is undoubtedly a larger, greater purpose
Oh
in
yeah.
this that they'll never, ever, ever see as a result of their endeavors. Maybe they've saved a kid that's going to be our intermediary to the non-human intelligence. They'll never know that, right?
Or it might
Any of
just
that
be a kid that works for the
needs
live.
to,
But sorry,
right?
so my point is I started interviewing them more and more and more, and I was like, what do I do on this podcast? And I start telling people, I'm like, please donate to them. And finally, through this podcast, I have a crazy Rolodex, which is why people think I'm a Fed. But I'm like, it's just, it's fuck you, it's God. And I found all these, I know these people who I've never asked favors for, and I was like, I know, I don't know, 10, 20 wealthy people through the show. I was like, I'm gonna ask them if they would consider donating to ARC for a fundraiser, knowing full well that it might turn some of them off and they might not want to talk because I've met a lot of wealthy people through the show and I've never asked them anything because I'm aware that they probably get asked for shit all the time.
Right.
And so I asked about the 20 people I know, 20 out of 20 were like, I would love to. So I got a fundraiser thrown, not a penny of mine because I'm a fucking cheap bitch and I don't have any money, but I got a fundraiser thrown for them and I think they raised around 100 grand, and I think it cost them around 10 grand a month to run. So my point is, I was able to do that through the show. And if you ask Baz, you go, well, why do you do it? He goes, 500,000 kids go missing a year. He goes, I know I'm not stopping that. I have no illusions that I'm stopping that. He goes, but it does matter to the kids. And here's the crazy thing. He goes, when you rescue the kids, 2, 3 years old, he goes, if they can even talk, he goes, the kids will look at you and go, I knew you were coming. I knew you
Right,
were
right.
coming. And then you start, and so they go, so one, it's objectively good to rescue the kids. And yeah, is one of the kids the next Einstein? Maybe. Is he the next me? I would hope he's better than me. Is he as
Right.
cool as Cliff? That would be a good one. Maybe they do nothing, but for all you know, that kid came into this life, and the purpose of this life was for this 65-year-old guy who spent 40 years in spec ops for the US government, realizing he was a tool for, the power elite. Maybe it had nothing to do with him rescuing the kid. Maybe it was all about the kid saying, I knew you were coming, and whatever beam of awareness happened in that moment, that's what was supposed to happen.
No, what
And
happened
what,
was the
yes.
meaning to the kid, the meaning to him,
And what was the
etc.
bigger meaning? That's not for you to
Yeah,
know. You're not read
yeah.
in. So sorry, I know I keep cutting you off. I
Well,
do that want to get excited.
yeah, but let's also talk about something that's been the same theme that was demonstrated here recently with David Wilcock's suicide. David
Oh yeah.
Wilcock is this conspiracy
I
guy.
know, yeah.
Yeah, long. I'm rambling about this because people may not know,
Okay.
but so I first contacted and had contact with him in the mid '90s because I was impressed with a lecture he gave, and so I first contacted David Wilcock, and we were not um, personality compatible, right? It just didn't work. I was just impressed. I told him, but there was never any real relationship that developed from there. And he goes on to his career, up and down, all of these problems. Then he gets to the point where he gets involved with Corey Good, and
Hmm.
things deteriorate. He was on the top of the world, and he met Corey Good, and that changed. And he had to go through the karma of losing everything, basically, and which happened. And then he's stuck up on a mountain in Colorado, and he's in dire straits, financially as well as emotionally, etc. And this was observable because to me and a lot of others, because he was doing these routine videos every week kind of thing. And so I saw a year before, so in June of 2020, June 6th of 2025, I moved to this house. I relocated and moved to this new place. And on that day, I contacted David Wilcock to tell him basically, and to ask, are you okay? Are you aware of the path that you're on? Because I could see that he was heading towards suicide, and just thought to offer to disrupt, to be a point of change around which he could pivot if he was so inclined. And he wasn't. And he ends up going for another year and then ends up committing suicide. And a lot of people got on my case about that at the time. And then afterwards, they got on my case for not doing more, et cetera, et cetera. None of which is pertinent. It was not in me to do more. It was, a very slim chance it would have worked, but I felt moved to attempt that, right? To provide that point of pivot for him, even though he didn't take it.
I had that not to interrupt again. I had that last summer. A girl I knew from middle school passed of a sudden heart attack, and her boyfriend, who was also in my middle school, I hadn't talked to either of them in like 20 years. I knew he was broken, and I remember just thinking like messaging. I have the messages on Instagram. Hey man, how are you doing? Hey man, how are you doing? And I remember like my last message was like, hey, like, and we were never even friends. I just said, hey bro, do you need to talk?
Right.
And a couple days later, he took his life. And I think about that, and I think about my brother John, and I go, it was a choice, and all you can do is offer. Sorry to interrupt, but sorry, keep
Same
going.
same thing. All you can do is offer, and then it occurs that things happen or they don't. Well, things happen, and it's to your liking or they don't. And there's nothing you can do about all of that. You just have to stand up in your integrity and say, "Here I am. I can provide assistance. I think. Contact me if you want." Right? But you can't force people to not do that. Right? take the path that you prefer. And a lot of it, you can say, well, you don't want the pain of their committing suicide to affect you, so that's why you're motivated to do it. And that was not the case. I'm way beyond that. Too many deaths, in my long life. I'm 73, and very few of the people that I've been through this life with are still alive. And so I'm used to the death aspect of it. But it's also a point of what ripples will come out by me being motivated and acting on that motivation to make this offer to him. What meaning shall I derive from the events that will occur there? And I will miss that meaning if I don't take that risk. So, and it's a risk, right? Because the risk of being, you're likely to be ignored or rebuffed and so on. And part of our social organization is you don't want to be rejected, as humans are, et cetera, right? So it's just one of those things where ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and then die. And so I did, and I'm satisfied with that, right? I made my effort to contact David on June 6th, and then I re-upped that contact about 25 days before he suicided. And so everybody could see it was a point of discussion. A lot of people discussed, oh my God, he's looking bad, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people even said that, this won't end well. And there is nothing that could be done because that was his choice. And that's an accumulation of choices that led him to that choice. The thing that we all learn or don't in this body's life is that each and every decision, each and every choice can stand on its own. Just because you've done 30 years of butt-headed drinking doesn't mean that you have to do it tonight. You can just set it aside tonight and see what meaning you get out of doing that kind of thing. So we are all in charge of our experience of this life seeking meaning. I think that a lot of our ills as humans are because of the way in which we've been herded and because of the structure that we've been told we live in. And that if we had a different structure, if we had a different view of things, and this is one reason that I'm very anticipatory about interactions with non-human intelligences, is that I think that at that stage, we'll start understanding ourselves in a broader context, and we'll be able to change the framework in which we think of ourselves. And that if we understand that our point is to achieve meaning, not achieve goals, then the world changes around us instantly, and all of our choices take on different parameters then. Maybe we'll make better ones as a result of that.
And actually, it's the world doesn't change at all. It's just you see it
It's us.
differently. It's
Yeah.
the analogy. No, talking about suicide, I always end up fucking tearing up. But like, so in 2004, I lost my cousin. I don't remember much about her. I think she's a lot older than me. I really don't remember her. In 2009, her father took his life just from 5 years of depression, and he's the guy that got me. No, sorry, his father, my great uncle Rich, he was on D-Day. He was the one that got me into doing pull-ups because I was doing chin-ups. And he said there's no point to chin-ups because if
Doing chin-ups.
he goes because you can't climb over a wall unless you're doing
Doing a chin-up.
pull-ups. And he
Yeah.
goes, you got to do that because sometimes and you can see it. He goes, because sometimes there's a tank behind you. And I just remember thinking, noted. Like, and so right, he was on Omaha Beach. So that's why I still do pull-ups to this day. His son,
Right.
my uncle, DEA, FBI, awesome dude, helped me get into weightlifting. So he took his life in 2009. I just started college. I was also 19. I was, chasing ass. And I remember thinking, to me, it was like, it was big, but it was also like, I just moved out. My life was going. And I just remember, taking it as a moment, but like not breaking me really. Just like,
Right.
and okay. So in 2011, my aunt took her life. I mean, took her life, but for years was getting more and more intoxicated, was having issues with it. And it's not my mother to talk about, so for privacy reasons I won't, but eventually went too far and died from it, and it was essentially a suicide. And so that was July 1st, 2011. Guess now there's three in the books. grandfather passes in 2010, but that's what grandpas do. They just right. He's my
Right.
uncle Tom. He's my grandfather Tom. I'm named after him, and I'm sure he would say that. But yeah, that's what we do. We just die. And 2014, lost my older brother, and um, the night before it happened, I was driving. I had driven down to Georgia. He had moved home. I was in Maryland because I just graduated. And I was going to go to med school that fall. I was like, well, I'll just go spend time with my parents until I start med school. He made an attempt on his life in January 2014. Obviously, it didn't work, and he came home. The first thing he did was give me a hug and say, I'll never do it again. And I believed him. And so we were both living at home. It was kind of like a weird sitcom. Like you know, we know none of us live at home since we're 18, and now all of a sudden we're both like we're
Everybody's
in,
back.
we're
Right.
literally like in the same bedroom, like like dude, turn off your phone or like stop farting, like you're snoring. It really was like I look back at it and I'm just like I'm so grateful for those 3 months I had him. Where it's like, dude, hurry up in the bathroom. Are you jerking off? I'm not jerking off, dude. Like, and like stuff like this. It's like, we're both in our 20s, and the parents doing everything, and he was on the right track. But the problem with somebody that smart is they can also deceive you. And I driven down to Georgia, and I went to meet with the pharmacy school director, and he knew me from like organic chemistry classes, and he was like, "I know who you are." He was like, "You aced all that stuff," and I was like, "Yeah." And I just remember sitting. It was like as I imagine it was what it's like being like 1950s and like being a good old boy and like getting a job at a law firm. I just went in there. He's like, I know who you are." He's like.
Right.
He goes, you're in. And I was like, fuck. He's like, yeah, I take these like two bullshit classes, but he's like, you're in. And I was like, fuck yeah. And it was total like that was the coolest moment ever. And I remember me and my girlfriend, we like went for like a walk in the woods and we were just like, I was like, it was the beginning of the rest of my life. I'm like, it's not med school, it's pharmacy school and blah blah blah. Uh we went home and that night had a nightmare that I was watching my older brother playing video games and that he got up and wrote a note and he made a meal and he got his gun and for my own privacy, he went and where he did it. It wasn't at home, and
Right.
he left a spare key on the table. It was very clear what he was doing. He didn't bring his wallet. He just brought his ID. I don't think I've said any of this on the show. He just brought his ID, and he brought his firearm with only one bullet. It was very clear. I to make I guess make
Yeah,
the
you don't need to.
make
Yep.
the investigation easier too. I think it was just
Right.
and I had a nightmare that I was watching this. And I remember waking up and panicking and my girlfriend just being like, I know you're worried about your brother, but like, come on, you're getting into farming. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And what happened is I guess my brother had prepared to do it that night. He had driven to the point where he was going to, and I guess he had changed his mind and he had come back. That was happening around 2 or 3 in the morning. That's when I was having the dream.
Sure, you caught that wave. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was actually measured it. It was not quite 600. I was exactly 599 miles away. I don't know what the significance of that is or whatever, but I was watching it in real time. Like I later, when I
Right.
found out the details in real time, I was watching that. And he came home. I think he made another meal. He went and he shot himself in the right temple. I don't think I've ever even said that on the show. He shot himself in the right temple. And I saw I didn't see that, but I saw that the
Up to
night
the point
before.
of the separation of his consciousness from the body. Yep.
And so then I went downhill for 2 years, and then that led to Cliff, choose love you fuck, and I
Right.
gained 80 pounds. I had long greasy hair. I was really bad. I looked like Jack Black. Move home, right? Dude, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad.
That is bad.
Dude, it was, dude. I went from like I don't have it now. I'm 36 now. Take 15 years off me. I mean, my cousin
Right.
used to call me like Captain America, and boy, I did not look like that anymore. And but I moved home in 2016 on I think like August 1st and therapy basically on suicide watch. Like I pretty much had to like learn how to function. I was a
Right.
broken human. I was addicted to clonazepam and cough syrup and drinking and everything. And I became friends with my uncle, one of my uncles on my dad's side, who I just have a ton of aunts and uncles. He was just one of the ones where I didn't necessarily know that well. You knew a couple very well, and it's just when big families, you don't know everyone very well. And
Right.
he was always kind of a stern guy. He was a surgeon, and I remember he had just retired, and I had just moved home because my life was fucked. And again, kind of this weird sitcom where me and this guy 5 decades apart, and my parents never knew I did acid. And I don't think anyone ever knew he did. And he and I were talking about acid and everything, and he and I became really good friends. And it was a guy who I just didn't know that well, and he and I became great friends, and it was the weirdest thing ever. And I remember taking a nap one day and just thinking about him, and I woke up, and I remember my mom telling that he took his life. And I remember I had a text from him, and I guess he had tried to text me or call me. It's just we were just talking. And
Right.
so I got really close to like this second family member who then takes his life. And then, okay, so 2 years later, I start the podcast and I'm trying to get anybody on the show. I mean, I'm literally going on a Reddit and somebody's like, I was in the Navy. And I'm like, will you do my podcast? Like, I was scraping the bottom of the barrel. And I reached out to my cousin, this guy's son, who was an Army Ranger. And I tried to get him on the show and we had it set up a couple times and it fell through and it fell through and it didn't happen. And so I finally stopped trying and talking
Sure.
about the long road. There's a point to everything I'm saying. Talking about the long road and how, the good cycles of going to bed early and whatever. Several days ago, I don't know what it was. I just had this urge to stay up. And so I just made a cup of coffee and just stayed up. And I called one of my veteran friends. He's in his like 70s. And I was telling him everything I'm telling you. I was talking about my brother and he's telling me about his friends that he lost. And that night, my cousin took his life. The night I decided to stay up. So my point in saying all of this to you and to whoever's listening is, well, part of it's therapy for myself is so much of it is watching and simply being there. And it might be that the purpose of all of this, it might be the purpose of all of this was literally for me to say it on this podcast on fucking August 21st. And someone's
Right.
meant to hear this, or it might not be. But with all of these things, there was always a moment beforehand, the temporal backwash, that I felt it. And the lesson for me in that is there's nothing is created in here, is I'm tapping into those other things. And you can look at that as a horrible example. I can tell when people are going to commit suicide, or you can say we're all one, which means you can also tap into helping people. And so I know I'm rambling on, and I don't mean to keep
But then
talking.
again, you've got to be careful with the helping people thing, right? Because you set yourself up.
You can be available.
Correct.
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 That's
And
what I
then
mean.
if universe cooperates, so I say universe provides and guides. So my lineage is Cathari. The Cathars which were a particular kind of Christians in Europe, and they were wiped out by the Catholics in a crusade that was run by the Pope
Sorry.
and
Sorry.
and the yeah and
Irish
the
Catholic. Yes. Sorry, that's my fault.
well, it wasn't the Irish; it was the Italian and French Catholics. Killed 1.5 million of them in like 12 years, and it culminates in burning the Knights Templar alive. Okay, they were the bankers and the leaders of the military arm of the Cathars. Cathars were a peaceful people. There were millions of them. 1.5 million died in that crusade, and then the rest were scattered. The Cathars, my lineage through my mother and my father. My father was German Cathar. My mother was French Cathar lineage. And so the Cathari have an interesting viewpoint. There's only two of their works that survive, but they were Christians that were firm. They firmly had an understanding of reincarnation. They firmly had an understanding of karma and how all this kind of stuff works, or it does not. And that's the issue. You set yourself up if you say, I'm going to help this person. Okay, you've instantly set yourself up on a karmic trail by that one decision, by that one choice. And you will suffer if you're into suffering from that choice. If you say, I'm available, I will offer, and as it occurs, as it occurs. And the Cathari would say, universe provides and guides. And then there's this long litany of things that go with it. It's one of their daily meditation mantras, and it has many different permutations to it. But the one I like is the universe provides and guides my eyes to see, my voice to say, my how wonderful is this day. And as long as I'm centered that way, every day is wonderful, no matter what happens, right? And the Cathari have a viewpoint that I think really needs to be resurrected within our current social order, because we're being dumped on by the powers that be, attempting to take over and reduce humanity. Now we're coming out of that. There is always a pendulum. So we're back on that pendulum. Time is not linear. The world in which we live in is not material. We all live in our own minds, and our minds interpret universe and provide us with this material framework, which we all agree exists, and we're all going to work within. But universe provides and guides my eyes to see, my voice to say, my how wondrous is this day. Always returning us back to this particular moment, this now. And as you understand, if you get to the point where you understand that time does not exist, there is no past and there is no future, that there is only now, then there is a tremendous, marvelous freedom in that. But there are still cautions that have to be applied, that you take on karma when you get involved with other people's lives. You create karma just thinking you're going to fix them. And that's egregious, in my opinion. You're making the assumption that you know better, and you can never know another one's suffering. You can know how you suffered, and you can put links between your suffering and theirs, and you're a kind-hearted person and you want them to not suffer. But we have an infinite number of lives, and the chain of effects of interfering with any individual life will ripple throughout all of those lives, for yourself and others. And so in my opinion, we have to be careful of this. I'm not a so your ARC guys, right? They willingly take on that personal karma in rescuing the kids, putting their lives at risk, their bodies at risk, etc. Right? So they have skin in the game. I don't like the people that don't have any skin in the game and they're always out there fiddling. So I'm not a Western Republic liberal, because I don't go along with this idea that you can save or fix or perfect anything. The only thing that you can save or fix or perfect is your awareness of what your body's life is going through and how you're going to deal with it. And an attempt to impose that on anybody else always ends in you learning, getting some meaning that it didn't work, right? And so with David Wilcock, for instance, I knew the likelihood was very low, but it was worth that minimal amount of effort to see if it would move and blossom. And he rejected that. So I reached out, a month or so before he killed himself, made myself available, and was rejected. And that's just the way it is. He had to live out his own karma. I've taken on some level of karma in doing that. And it's like, okay, that's fine,
And telling me, and maybe
Yeah,
the purpose
exactly.
was
And
maybe,
expressing it out.
and I
Yeah.
think about that, and I think about a guy a veteran friend who had made a couple dark, cryptic tweets last summer, and I texted him and said, "Are you okay?" And he said no. And I called him and went right to voicemail. First thing I did was I contacted the other special forces guys I knew that lived around him, and I went like, "This is happening," and they were on the move, and they went to his house or something. What dude called me the next day, so angry. He was like, he's like, I was having a bad night, and I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I thought you were, I try to explain. I go, it's because my brother and I felt like maybe that was happening. He's like, oh, so it's good to know it's all about you. And I was like, you motherfucker. And like, I went through this whole thing, and I talked to the other SF guys, and they said, you did the right thing. And they go, even if he's being a cocksucker, they go, you did the right thing. And they go, and if he makes cryptic tweets like that again, they go, do the same thing. And I said,
Do it all over again.
I
Right.
will. And you take that on, and my friend Ian Burlingame, who's you might like him, he's in
Yeah.
finance.
I listen to everything he says. I watch his podcasts. Yeah.
Oh fuck it, dude, I love Ian. He's one of my best friends. He actually said something that you recently said, but he said something where he interviewed me a couple months ago, and it was the first time anyone ever said it to me. And I always know when someone's teaching me a lesson, or intentionally or unintentionally, when my ego flares up and I want to like just
I
start
want to reject it.
swinging and get my ass kicked by a Green Beret, right? I
Right.
have a biology major. These guys will fucking kill me. But
Right.
he goes, so you wanted to save your brother. And one thing I always say, I go, well, through this podcast, I want to prevent at least one suicide. And he goes, so you tried to save your brother? And I go, yeah, I really tried to. And he goes, and that's pretty narcissistic of you.
Yeah.
And I remember I looked at him, and but at this point, he and I have been friends for 2 years. And he goes, to think that you had that power
And that you
and
had that right,
to
even
have that
beyond the
right.
power.
And I
Just
remember
because
when
you can do it doesn't mean you
and I
should.
love EM, but I remember when he said that, I was kind of like, I was going to be like, I mean, all the emotions. I'm like, that's my fucking brother you're talking about. Like it, and but that I could do that. Was I supposed to do that? Like you know, I'm gonna move. I'm some alien. I'm gonna move this asteroid out of the way. I don't want to kill all these triceratops. And it's like you have to because 65 million years later, this thing happens, and then this guy named Cliff talks to this guy named Tommy, and somebody listens to it, and he's on
And it won't
acid,
happen
and
if
he
we
has
don't
this
have that.
idea, and he has a
Right.
friend that works at S4, and they talk about something, and then the anti-gravitic technology gets out, and the child pedophile grip on the world breaks, and we enter into the next phase. How dare you move that asteroid? And you're
Right.
like, but I'm trying to save the Triceratops. And they're like, you're fucking up everything. And when EM said, and I love EM to death, I was like, how dare you? And like the other day, he's on a trip right now. And the other day, he's a poetic guy. He made a tweet about like tequila or something. And he was like, this is literally like 48 hours ago. And he's like, and I have all these stories and I am so tired. And he's like, will anyone even listen? And I saw that and it just immediately like cortisol dump. And I
Yeah.
called him and I go, dude, are you all right? Are you okay? And he's like, yeah, what's up? He's drinking. He's like, what's up, man? He's like, I'm in where the fuck on the beach. And I'm like, you made that tweet and that sounds really dark. And he's like, oh, it was no, it was a whatever. It was a mention of this or whatever. And I was like, oh. And I go, but you're okay? You're not suicidal? He's like, no, brother. He's like, I'm drinking tequila and looking at beautiful women. And I went, okay, you're okay. And he goes, yeah, are you okay? And I go, yeah. And he goes, no, no, no. Are you okay? And I went, oh no, I'm
And you can
not.
see why he's asking that too, right?
And
If
I
you
went,
get out of your own self. Yeah.
I went, oh no, and I realized I'm out of my heart's pounding. I'm covered in fucking
Right.
sweat. And I went, like, no, I'm not okay. And he was like, are you all right? And I was like, right. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I'll see you when I'm back. And I'm like, okay. And I realized I was like, no, but all of that is to prevent that is not your purpose. It might be that you are here to feel that and to reach out
No,
to
no,
him.
it is your purpose to feel that.
To,
You must have felt it. You must have reacted to it or
yes.
be given the choice to react to it.
Or repeat the class.
Exactly.
And let me check the time just so I'm not. Yeah, we got to wrap it up in a couple minutes because I
Yeah.
keep telling the I'm like, yeah, we'll be there in 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Like, and
Yeah.
you can never explain over text. You're like, I'm talking to this guy about the universe. So I'd have to
Yeah.
be like, I'm late. But like, even now I think about someone like Drew Bob, who's legitimately one of my best friends and the one that got me into you. He's always talking about you, and he's always and he's always bringing you up. And I even text him like we always joke because he's Jewish. I'm like, Drew Bob, what's Cliff saying about silver? And he's, and everyone, you talk to the other guys about the markets, and they're like, well, Thailand's doing this over here. I talked to Drew Bob. I'm like, what's Cliff saying? He's saying that the numbers are saying that there's an off-world entity that's influencing this for around October. I'm like, all right, bye. Like, so like, who's my
Right.
advisor? Who my financial advisor is Jewish, but yes, he's using Cliff's ninth sense to dictate. So
Right.
that's where my financial advice comes from. But my point is he was like, you got to get him on. You got to get him on. And I've had on Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke, youngest man to walk on the moon. He's actually coming on again in a week. I've had Roseanne Barr, General Flynn, Mike Durant, Black Hawk Down pilot, had Ken Alabek, the head of the Soviet Union bioweapon program. I've had all these guys, all these Black Ops guys. And I remember I emailed you, and 99 out of 100 times, well, I'll email 100 people. 90% won't respond. You just won't get a response. 9 out of the 10 that do response will say no, thank you in some form or another. And you go, all right, take that as a win. And then 1% will go, yeah, I'll come on. And it's normally just, yeah, I'll come on or no, thank you. But I still have the email, and your response was not possible at this time. And it's always stuck with me, not in a good or a bad way. It just felt very Gandalf, Terrence McKenna, like, not yet. And I just, and maybe that's what you say to maybe that's some automated
No,
response.
that was, you're quite correct to focus in on that because I do have that temporal awareness.
You said
Okay,
not at this
I
time.
can see the absolute, I can see the pleroma that Jesus described as the mountain. And I even wrote a annotated version of the Gospel of Thomas, and I've got it on my Substack, where Jesus teaches people how to manifest. So you have to decide, what are you going to do between the moments, between the choices that you're presented in your life. And so I work. I enjoy work. I enjoy producing things, odd little things. But yes, I have that temporal awareness, and it was not appropriate at that time. You would not have been in the state of mind that we would have had this particular discussion. We could not have stepped into this stream
It went
at
ahead.
that time, right? I knew that, and so there was no point in pursuing that because it would have. I say this to myself just as a way of putting it into words. It would have been awkward, come off stilted. We wouldn't have achieved the same rapport, the same result from it. And so there's times, mostly, and it's difficult to discuss all of this because of our language, but there are periods in which I know that I'm not supposed to be doing these things. And so I defer, right? And it's just, I'll tell people, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this. With you, it was necessary that I let you know that it was not possible at that time because it was indeed in our future that we would be doing this. I did not, and I had pages and pages of notes on potential subjects for us to discuss, none of which we've gotten into, but yet every one of which we've touched in going through all of this, right? Because it all relates back to this concept of meaning and how does a human navigate their life with all these choices in our seeking of meaning. And it's not even for ourselves. We experience the meaning for the monad, for the absolute. And so this is what you're doing, and we all wrestle with it. We all thrash around. It's not easy. It is a very terrible thing to be a human, right? It is a challenge. We have to accept that our challenges are meaningful in and of themselves in this process. But as you say, it helps me now to have this awareness of time. And it perhaps comes from the fact, or from the way in which well, no, it certainly comes from the way in which I've lived this particular body's life, and that my body has memories attached to it from before I was in it. So I have a different perspective of time than most people. And so the reductionism that most people live with, where they think something is past or that the future exists and all of this, doesn't enter into my life, but it makes it a little difficult for those around me because I have to say, time does not favor, this day does not favor that activity. And then I just let it go at that. Some other day may indeed, and I may have hints of that, but there's no point in being all woo or spooky about it and say, in 3 weeks it'll feel good,
You
right?
can try, but
It's not meaningful, right?
no,
And that's what we're here to do, is to seek meaning, right? And if we're lucky, we impart meaning to others. But even that is it's a side effect. It's not the point, right? Yes, you probably will. I'm certain that you've deferred or eliminated some people from taking that particular choice to end their life. And that probably will, in those choices, those people where they've accepted that meaning that came over them while listening to you ramble on about these things, right? And blather out all this bullshit. But nonetheless, they were struck by meaning and it changed their life. And you'll never know. They could tell you and it would have some touching feeling to emotions on you, but it'll never be as powerful as it was for them. And that's not the point of it all, right? The point of it all is our interconnection in consciousness through this giant network of things, and the unfolding of this reality within this constant now. And we will never be compensated for all of the good acts, nor will we ever be compensated for all the bad acts that we make. And in the ultimate, you will, in my opinion, actually, I think a lot of people will come to the point where they do indeed compensate for the evil that they've done because they suffer themselves. And if they come to themselves in that suffering, then thereafter they will act differently and make different choices. And so I'm not a good guy. I've done evil in my life, and I have compensated. And I'm a different person because of going through those experiences. And so now, you know, occasionally it'll be like, no, not possible at this time because that was meaningful to you and it stuck with you, right? And it was not a casual thing. I don't reply that way to everyone. Mostly I say, no, thank you. I'm sorry, just not possible. And, and just let it go. But there are those. So I know there's a few out there that are still hanging out this year where I'll be discussing some difficult subjects with some people. And yes, we can tell Drew Bob
I was gonna say
the aliens
you have
are
to say
there.
his name. You have to say his. I was gonna say you have to say his name before. I'm glad you said it, Drew Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can tell him that, yeah, the aliens are indeed influencing the price of silver. But right at the moment, the advice is, get on cryptos. They're roaring and they're going to go. And so until they don't go, and I'm not going to tell you when that will be or under circumstances, that's up for you and your choices to make, right? But the world is not as we have been told. It's what we experience and where we get our meaning that defines it.
You want to know something? And I was going to say, and certain guests have reached out to, or I love the response of like, how'd you get this email? When I actually somehow got the email of the acting NSA director a couple of years ago, General Nakazone. So would you do my podcast? I love talking about the NSA, and the response was from some other email that said, "How did you get this?" Or when I or when I called Northrop Grumman and I asked about, it, I was like, "Can I?" In 2020, I was like, "I'd love to talk about the B-21 Raider." Which everyone knew was in development, but it was still a special
Right.
access for her because I had just interviewed a B-2 Spirit pilot, and they were like, I remember the response wasn't yes or no, it was what country are you in? And I was like, and so I talked to some of my buddies, and they go, you're marked, they think you're probing, and so
Right.
certain people I realize I go, oh, they do not want anything to do with me. Some people look at my show and go, I want nothing to do with you and what you stand for. Other people, I'm a more right-leaning guy, but I've had on very liberal guy, Professor David Vine, Professor Garrett Graff, Richard Rhodes, Pulitzer Prize winning. They know who I am. They know I'm conservative, but they know I want to talk about their book, and the match happens, and it happens beautifully. I was gonna say with your response, it was never sometimes because sometimes you get a kind, and you can tell it's a copy paste response that said, he is unavailable, but thank you for what you do. But I
Thank
remember
you for
you,
asking.
no, but it's
Right.
so, but after the fifth time, you realize you go, oh, I'm getting a copy pasted response, and you just notice stop asking. But I just
Right.
remember with you is not available at this time, and I never followed up, but I just remember thinking it just always stuck with me. I was like, in the best possible way, I was like, this motherfucker. There's something that's up. What I want to say is this, and then we have to wrap. Drew Bob. So I was playing. What was I playing? I think I was playing Far Cry 5. And this was before I had ever talked to him. He was just in the live chat on Rumble. And I'm playing Far Cry 5 and I'm running around. I'm like, I don't know, shooting eagles or some shit. And and he would always say these weird cryptic things. And I was like, you're like a wizard. And he was like, yeah, kind of. And so I just started calling him like wizard, like Drew Bob Wizard. So he'd come into the chat and I would just see the word Drew Bob. And the first time, giving me goosebumps, the first time he ever mentioned you, I vividly remember I was playing this game and I was in the wilderness and I was walking through a stream in the game. And he goes, you should have on this guy. His name is Clif High. And I went like, high, like drugs? He's like, yes. I'm like, what the fuck? And he was like, yeah, he talks about aliens and silver. And I was like, so, and I look back now and the wizard is talking to me as I'm stepping through the stream that I'll never step through again to get on this guy. And years later, you're here and
And we're talking about streams.
it all just clicks and
Gels.
you go not an atom was out of place. But I'm a horrible guest because now I gotta hop on a show and they're gonna be like, "Where the fuck are you?" Yeah, I'm okay. I'm here. Yeah,
And that's okay. I'm
uh,
getting pinged on my phone too.
look,
And we'll do this again in the future, Kevin.
I would love to. I love your shirt, by the way. Actually, he is a cat, right?
Right. It's a samurai cat.
Yeah, yeah. So I emailed for everybody else. I emailed you before. I'm like, do you care if I wear a tank? I knew you were relaxed, but you're like, dude, I don't
Right.
care. I'm a samurai cat, and I didn't realize till halfway through. I'm like, oh, that's an actual samurai cat. But dude, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that I love you as a human because I know that you are me and I am you, and everyone listening is this was all supposed to happen on this day, Drew Bob, that fucking wizard, was supposed to tell me that walking through the stream.
And we'll
And
never know why.
and even if we figure out a picture,
It's not
you're
accurate.
not right into the bigger one. You found
Right,
out about the UFOs, yeah, but
right,
you're at Area 51. You haven't been to S4 yet. You're like, what the fuck's S4? And it's like, come
right.
over here. It's
So I'll give you your S4.
yeah,
Pay attention when you get those chill bumps. That's
okay.
your body reinforcing the fact that you've just had meaning and you're passing it too quick, right?
And
Yep.
where is this? Where's this fucking? Where? There we go. We got Bob Lazar on the.
Yeah.
Come on, where is he?
Oh,
Bob, where
I
are you?
love Bob. I've actually done business with him. I bought materials from his company.
Yeah, what, American Atomics or Atomic?
Yeah, yeah.
I've tried. I've gotten in touch with
American
him.
Nuclear. Yeah,
American Nuclear. I've tried to get him on, and it's always like his secretary says he can't, but I'm always like, I want to have you on, Bob. But yeah, I'm waiting
maybe
for my.
that too will happen.
I think it will when it's supposed to.
Yeah,
Like, why do I know? Why can I text Roseanne Barr?
yeah,
Why can I talk to? Why can right now I can text a guy who's walked on the moon?
yeah.
You know, it's odd, and but
It's just
it's
simply out of the
it's
ordinary experience. It's what's necessary. Yeah,
it's the long walk, and it's be available to help. And I think that's a big thing I still need to internalize. Be
it's tough,
available
dude. It's so tough. Yeah,
because the world is fuck. Okay, I gotta go. But
you got to, you got
As Ram
to.
Dass said, he goes, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at all the war in the world and all the poverty, and I go, how do we fix it all? And Neem Curly Baba looks at him and he goes, don't you see how perfect it is? And he goes,
Yeah,
but what about the bombing in Vietnam? And he goes, Ram Dass, it's also perfect. And Ram Dass goes, and I was so angry at that old man. But okay, I'm getting pinged. I don't see you. I was, oh fuck, I
you're good.
got. And then
You're good.
now I'm just lying. I'm like, oh, Cliff,
Yeah,
dude, that was awesome. I would love to have you on again. Blah 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 blah. Send me the links. I'll get up as soon as the next show's over. I'm all flustered. Thank you so much, man. I don't even know
sure.
what to say.
I was happy to do it. It was the way it should have been. It was perfect.
I'm so happy that you didn't even. And is that a gun on your table?
Yeah, that's a CZ NATO issue. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I was
use
the
it. I
entire
use
time
it
I was
as a
wondering.
paperweight here because I'm using this for indoor shooting with those laser bullets. I
Yeah.
have others that have fully loaded magazines, but this one does not.
The entire time I was like, "Is that a gun?" Because I keep two or three things on the desk for the podcast. I keep caffeine pills in case I got to perk up. I keep a crucifix in case I feel darkness, and then I keep a shotgun loaded with thermite rounds in case. I'm not
Just
kidding.
in case.
Just in case everyone needs to die. I gotta run because I'm a horrible person. Yeah, no, I'm
You're not.
coming.
You're
Sorry.
not
All right,
horrible.
Cliff,
You're
dude,
not horrible.
thank you so much,
Enjoy your
brother. Till
time,
next
guy.
time, dude. That was awesome. I love you, brother. Guys.